Okay, shalom, brethren. We have Brother Tony with us today.
All right.
And let me see the thumbnail. Let me make sure that I'm going to follow through with the promise on what this video is going to be. I've been busy preparing what we're going to watch. Bioscience is a fraud. Okay, we are going to see that. Dr. James SOOOOO states the truth in the name of the truth, Jesus Christ. We're going to see that. Let's talk about nonsense. Yeah, we'll talk about some nonsense. Abiogenesis, same thing.
Pretty much.
Apologetics. Dr. SOOOOO is going to set us straight on apologetics, and that's the next thing it says is Dr. SOOOOO. And I made it look like a newspaper article, so it says by Brother Tony. That's just kind of like
good.
A little thematic joke. But okay, brother, let's get right into the first video. I'm just going to share my entire screen and keep it simple. So share audio, entire screen, and okay. So I got some hyperlinks already lined up.
Awesome. Now I'm waiting for anybody to refute that video, you know.
I'm a synthetic organic chemist. Origin of life is purely synthetic organic chemistry. There's no way around it.
I can barely hear it.
Okay, sharing your screen and audio, and I turned it up all the way.
Huh. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I hear you excellent, and I hear him excellent on my screen. I'll try an individual Microsoft Edge tab. I think I need to do that anyway. Oh, I didn't add him to the stream. Yeah, that helps. But I'm going to have to do this a little bit differently because I'm going to have to look at stuff other than what I'm showing on the screen. Boom, boom, let's see. Okay, let's see if we hear this just fine.
I'm a synthetic organic chemist. Origin of life is purely synthetic organic chemistry. There's no way around it. I'm perfectly situated to be commenting on this, to be critiquing the origin of life research. It is abiological. It is before biology takes over. This is purely synthetic organic chemistry. And making these compounds is very simple. 4 classes of compounds. You have to make them from what's available on a presumed prebiotic earth. And so the chemistry is not hard for a synthetic organic chemist to follow. And any trained synthetic organic chemist can follow me on this. And I've never seen a synthetic organic chemist disagree with me on this. In fact, the people that might disagree with me are biologists because they've never made anything.
Exactly. We can pause it there if you want. That's
okay.
You know, and that's what I'm hearing from the atheist. But you know, he got James SOOOOO saying, yeah, well, the biologists haven't made anything.
Absolutely, and we're going to see some details on that.
Oh, yeah.
I decided not to leave this underdone. So a lot of the technical stuff I'm going to put in higher speed. So
sure.
When we do that, everyone will need to pay close attention.
He'll go into these synthetic kits that they're using, all these chemists, and yeah.
Yeah, and when I get a time space here, I'll put the links in the description to these 2 videos.
Sure.
Let me see. Boom, boom.
Kit, and they make it, which is made by chemists. But they
so they make the biologists only make kits, which are made by chemists.
Right, and these kits are all, you know, chemically prepared beforehand, all purified and ready to go. They're purchased.
They've never made.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Anything ab initio, and so it's the synthetic chemist kit, which is made by chemists, but they've never made anything ab initio. And so It's the synthetic chemist that can critique origin of life research better than anyone else. So go ahead, ask your synthetic chemist friends to listen to what I have to say. If they have anywhere a master's degree or beyond in synthetic organic chemistry, have them critique what I say.
Okay, and so what I'm beginning is by establishing just how qualified Dr. Tour is for
Yeah,
this. And
absolutely.
that's the next clip I have lined up is on that too. Now, Smokey Saint, I saw our brother Smokey there in the side chat. And I think originally he was saying Dr. Tour has been cited about 50,000 times. Then he said about 77,000. But
Yeah, it just keeps
I
going
looked
up.
it up the other day. It's past 104,000
Wow.
that he has been cited. I got that on Google Scholar, where scholars sign up to have their records kept on there.
Yeah. Well, the internet atheist community just keeps saying he's not qualified and he has no clue what he's talking about. So yeah.
And then here, I just want to note that a lot of times people, when talking about science, they say we, talking about all of humanity.
No.
Oh yeah, this is where each time I have to reshare the screen, but that's fine. So I'll be more on the ball with that next time. So then, yeah, when he says we, he's not talking about all of humanity. He's talking about specifically his team.
Yeah.
And so here we go. Is it on the screen? No,
Yep.
probably
Good.
not.
I can see it.
Okay, cool.
Same atoms arranged differently bring the change in value. A piece of coal, $60 a ton. Same atoms in diamond, which has very high value. They're just rearranged differently. This is where we take graphene and grow carbon nanotubes. This is a company, the company that started, it's being built up right now just outside of Houston. It's for lithium batteries. We work a lot in these areas of cleaning up water. We work in these areas of nanomachines. If you click it once, this car will start to go. So you click the slide, advance once. Oh yeah, that's not going to run. I forgot because it's been transferred. So all right, that's okay. Just trust me. That moves across the surface. so this. What happens is this top part spins and pushes the car along, and it spins at 3 million rotations per second and propels the car. These cars are so small we can park 50,000 of these across the diameter of a human hair, 50,000 of them. And they have little motors that are all light operated. And what we're doing is we're taking these same motors that spin at 3 million rotations per second. We put on a peptide and that'll direct it to the surface of a cell.
Okay, and just real quick, because that's what our backdrop is today. So I'm just going to take this stuff. So that's the nano car right there. Let me see, I have it in this form. Yeah, there we go. Here's the nano car that he's talking about. You can see the axle, and I'm not sure exactly which part's the motor.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool.
Oh, let me get on the right one. Here we go.
A cell, depending on the peptide add in we put there, and then we activate the motor and it spins at 3 million rotations per second. It drills right through and the cell is dead in 1 minute. Just these drilling into cells. So we're looking at this. So if you'd advance to the next slide. So these are just transitions to companies in the past 5 years. Graphene quantum dots, that's commercial now. It's working in anti-counterfeiting platforms and also for frac water tracking, 2-terminal ultra-dense computer memory, lithium metal batteries, corrosion inhibitors already on the market. We're working on spinal cord repair, peripheral nerve repair, optic nerve repair. We want to do the works of Jesus Christ. We want to make the lame walk and the blind see. We've already made the deaf hear. So we're trying to build technologies that can do this. And this is real. We do this type of thing. We can cut the spinal cord completely in half in a rat and fuse this back up so the rat within 3 weeks has a 19 out of 21. 21 is the highest mobility that can be achieved. So it can get to near perfect mobility within 3 weeks. So that's a company now that's going in Tel Aviv, Israel.
Did you want it at this speed? Just checking. He's at the speed you have it.
What? Oh, this is the speed. Is this too fast?
Yeah, it's I don't know if that's how you wanted it. I mean, I can hear him. He's just flying along there.
Yeah, I can keep up, but I'll slow it down. I'll try one slower for everyone else.
That's up to you.
Well, I'm sure you can keep up too, because you know this stuff.
Good.
But
that will be in clinical trials within 1 year at MD Anderson Cancer Center. DNA sequencing, this is doing the entire human genome map, entire human genome, not just 23andMe, the entire genome for $100 in 1 hour. This opens it up now to everyone in the world. We work in this area of water purification based on laser-induced graphene. We have inserts for texting with long fingernails. So if you have long fingernails and it's hard to text, we got a little thing, you just put it on your fingernails and you can text just fine. There's actually a big demand for that. I mean, this is real stuff. This is the traumatic brain injury, stroke, and dementia drug. A company will launch this year. Graphene synthesis at $100 per ton in energy cost, going to concrete, plastic, and metals. That'll launch this year. And then the molecular nanomachines to kill cells that's going to cancer and the killing of superbugs. These things that are resistant to antibiotic resistance. We can drill right through them. And a friend of mine here, Richard, is here, and he works on this as well. So these are areas. So we're real scientists. We do real things. Okay, next slide. And the next slide. This movie's not going to run, so just go to the next slide there. There's Richard there, and let's go to the next slide. That was the research group. So we're going to get into the talk at hand. I'm not going to make any reference to God, any reference to intelligent design or anything. I'm just going to allow science to critique the science. What do we have to say about origin of life? What does science tell us? What can we infer here? And so by choice, I am not going to mention God, because if I mention God and Jesus Christ, people say, oh, to introduce the baby Jesus to talk about this. It's not a real talk. All right, this is pure scientific talk. This would work in any medical school, in any chemistry department. Next slide.
Okay, so
Yeah, that's a good point.
there we go with everything about how qualified he is. Do you have anything to say on that, Tony?
Yeah, no, that's just a good point. He's not bringing up any, religion or anything. Or even intelligent design. He's just critiquing the chemistry and how it's not working. He does get into protocells later on, but yeah.
Yeah, so let's continue then.
So this is a cell. What is the origin of life? How do you get a cell like this? What is the origin of something like this? This is an amazing machine. A cell is an amazing machine. It's not just a blob of protoplasm. Every day, it gets harder to have the origin of life, to come up with a scenario, because the origin of life becomes more and more complex every day. A cell is a factory. It has the lipid bilayer, which is extremely selective to let certain things in and not other things. It has all of this substructure in here, these little areas where energy is made in here. It has these microtubules which can form, so you can move matter from point A to point B. If you go to a factory, what you see is these overhead hanging machines that are moving materials from point A to point B. In these systems. And the way they do this is they build these racks. But the same thing happens in a cell. You get these microtubules to move material from point A to point B. And then as soon as the material is done moving, the microtubule breaks down and then assembles some other place. You say, well, why doesn't it leave it there? Because then the cell would become too rigid. So it just rebuilds it. It's just amazing factory what's happening in a cell. This is what we have to make. If we want to have origin of life, you got to start here. You don't start here. You start with a single cell. Just build a single cell. That's what we have to do in origin of life. Nobody has ever done this. If you've been taught that simple forms of life have been made, that is a lie that you are believing. Somebody told you a lie. That has never been done. Next slide.
Total lie.
That's
Agree.
not even the lie that I mentioned to you that he's going to point out later. He's going to point out a very specific lie later.
Yeah.
Then, okay.
Slide. Organisms care about life. Molecules don't care. Chemistry, on the contrary, is utterly indifferent to life. Without a biologically derived entity acting upon them, molecules have never been shown to evolve toward life. Never. Molecules don't care about life. They don't know anything about moving toward life. They have no brain. Organisms want to move toward life and keep life going. Molecules don't care about life. Nobody has ever seen molecules assemble toward life. Never. It doesn't happen without a biological entity working on them. I asked all my colleagues, can you show me an example of this? Of molecules moving toward order, moving toward an ordered system where you have a non-regular assembly. Regular assembly is like A or AB. That you can get pure thermodynamic assembly. But non-ordered assembly is a non-regular pattern. That's what you have in DNA. We know from computer science you have to have non-regular patterns in order to have complexity for living systems. And I asked my colleagues, do you have any example of molecules without a biological entity acting upon them, moving to give an ordered assembly that is a non-regular pattern? And they sent me papers where chemists have taken molecules and assembled them in that way. I said, non-biological entity. You can't have a human doing this. Molecules don't move toward life.
Pause right there. I want to make, this is.
Well, I'll get a few more seconds because I have it scheduled for just a moment.
Molecules move toward life and you have human beings working upon them. Can the human beings do it? And the answer is no. Next slide.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so much for their, it's just chemical reactions. So, okay, chemicals don't do what we want them to do. They have to be forced in that direction.
Absolutely. And when I bring this up with Leo Filius especially, he always switches, he always tries to switch it back to post-biology. So I need to learn from Dr. Tour here to use these specific words without biological agency acting upon it.
Right. Ab initio.
That's not just us, but that's also if you use biology that you already have, of course, you can maybe alter that to get it to produce certain chemicals or something, but that's already a biological system. So we're talking about chemistry when biology is not a factor. This is prebiotic for abiogenesis. And this is an excellent tool in the toolbox because common ancestry theory requires the common moment And the model is just pretend if they're not accounting for the common moment and proposing at least a possible beginning. And abiogenesis is not a possible beginning. So then they have to use a different possible beginning. But more exactly, what Dr. James Tour discusses is simply the fact that there is no science in what is
Right.
so-called abiogenesis science. So that's what
Right.
Dr. Tour focuses on as a scientist.
It's not leading in that direction, and that's what you'll often hear from all the atheists. People like that guy Mark that was in Maddox's room the other day, Leo and Godless Engine. Oh, it's all leaning in that direction. RJ was saying that too, but it really isn't.
Okay, and then I mean I'm as far as 1.25 speed, I really think if people want to learn this stuff, that they should go to these original videos. If you search Dr. Tour, you find them easily. And as soon as I get a chance, I'll put the links in the description. So when it's less technical, then I'm going to slow it down. But if people want to learn the technical stuff, then I would really recommend reviewing it at a slower speed later. So I think I'm going to keep it at 1.5, but I really appreciate the feedback. And then abiogenesis is pseudoscience. Thank you, Smokey. Yes, Nathan, no one knows the beginning, but if your model proposes common ancestry and you're using only evidence from the present about the deep past, then you better have accountability for the entirety of your model, or then you have to admit that the science stops at a certain place, and even the scientific philosophy stops at a certain place. That is philosophy of science, and becomes just philosophy of philosophy at some point.
Absolutely.
So then I have marked where I'm going to pause it next for us to talk. Okay, here we go.
So almost every chemical synthesis experiment in origin of life research can be summed up by a protocol analogous to this. They purchase chemicals.
Okay, I'll slow it down for people. For me, this is
This is a good part here.
he speaks in a way that's really easy for me to follow the way he describes things.
Yeah.
Because, I will slow it down. I'll take Smokey's advice because that was really fast for most people. Here we go.
Every chemical synthesis experiment in origin of life research can be summed up by a protocol analogous to this. They purchase chemicals generally in high purity from a chemical company. All right, so that's what they do. They first purchase the chemicals. They mix those chemicals together in water in high concentrations in a specific order under some set of carefully devised conditions in a modern lab. Then they can obtain a mixture of compounds that have a resemblance to one or more of the basic 4 classes of chemicals needed for life. So what you need for life is you need carbohydrates, nucleic acids, amino acids, and lipids. That's what we know. All life we know composes those 4 building blocks. So they try to make those 4 building blocks. Then they publish a paper making bold assertions about origin of life from these functionless crude mixtures of stereochemically scrambled intermediates, much like Miller did in 1952. Nothing has changed in 66 years. Nothing. Nothing's changed. Exactly where we were in 1952 is exactly where we have remained. Think about what's been done in science in the past 60 years. Think about how we have now satellite connectivity. Remember, in 1952, there had never been a satellite. Now we have satellite connectivity. We have cell phones. We have structure of DNA. We can manipulate DNA structure. Nothing has changed in origin of life studies in 66 years. That's important to realize. Then you engage with the ever-gullible press to dial up the knob of unjustified extrapolations. Watch the mesmerized layperson exclaim, "You see, scientists understand how life formed." Then you encourage a generation of science textbook writers to make colorful, deceptive cartoons of raw chemicals, assembling from cells, which then emerge as slithering creatures from a prehistoric pond. That is exactly what is done every one of their experiments.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're almost to the pause moment.
It's all done like this. Every one of their experiments can be fit into this. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to go back and a bunch of you are going to send me articles. Look at this. These people have made life, haven't they? It fits into this. Trust me, it fits into this. Every one of them. Next slide.
Yeah.
Next slide. I love that.
and you know, that's what I say to all of them. I said that to Snake, to Luca, to all these other internet atheists. Same thing.
Well, here's something I want to point out. Like, Dr. James Tour is so awesome that every time he says next slide, it means mic drop.
Yeah, pretty much.
Time.
Where's Immutable, by the way? He said he was coming in.
Yeah, I don't know. Does he actually check this stuff out, or is he hoping not to learn better?
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to learn anything, but that's exactly what I've been telling him. This stuff is highly contrived.
So let me see. I might have a little bit of a switch up here. I think a tiny bit. Let me see.
But that right there explains, like he says, all origin of life experiments. Anything that they've been trying to produce or they think they're coming close to, no, it's all manipulated.
Okay, and then instead of switching it all around, I just opened it to look at the timestamp, and then I'm moving it there. Yeah, and we're going to get into the details on this. So this is not empty words from Tony at all. So when you see Tony in the chat, you know, you're going to see how backed up this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you didn't see the beginning of this video, you're going to need to watch it again because Dr. James Tour is incredibly qualified, and we showed that at the beginning of this video. And that's just important because people who are more interested in pop culture than actually, you know, fact checking will like to assume that if James Tour is saying that abiogenesis has no science to it, then supposedly he must not be a real scientist or something. And it's so the opposite of the truth. This is one of, if not the most qualified person in the world to assess this.
Up more material. How do you do that? So say in nature that started, say somehow it started and it got a kilo of formaldehyde and acetone, and it's going to start combining these. So these are going to go along and start reacting. At some point, it's going to run out of material. How do you go back to the beginning and get more? Again, you never kept a laboratory notebook, so you never know how you got there. So even if you could repeat it, go down the same junky path, and you run out again. You'd never get to where you want to go. Nature keeps no laboratory notebook. Next slide. So this is just the motor part on the nano machines. We were building nano cars. We actually won in 2017 the International Nano Car Race. It was the first race. We went 150 nanometers in an hour and a half. And that sounds like a long time to go 150 nanometers, but we actually the second place people behind us were the Swiss team. Took them 5 hours beyond us. So it took them 6.5 hours total. And none of the other international teams were able to complete the race in 30 hours. So it's not easy to go 150 nanometers when you're driving these little cars. But anyway, so this is the motor on just the car. And so you see these different steps. You reacted at all these different temperatures. Here, you have to have it at 5 degrees, then cool it to -10 and -15, and then -50 degrees here. And then you run these reactions. This one's done at 130 degrees. This one's done at 60 degrees. You're like, what's with the temperature? What's your problem? Why you're cold, hot, cold, hot? Why do you do this? Oh, because we just like to. We just like to cool things down and heat things. No, you have to. Each step needs its own parameters. How does nature know that? You say, well, it was, you know, it's some deep sea vent. Okay. So it warmed up there. And then what? Then it left the vent. And then it, you know, ended up at some other really cold place. And then it went back. And then it went back and back and forth. Nobody knows how any of this ever happened in nature. Nobody knows. Next slide. So this is the experimental procedure. So what you do, you take an oven-dried 3-neck round bottom flask, and you charge it with 33. You add magnesium sulfate and dichloromethane, and you cool it down here, cool it down. This is just one step on that thing. And then you get the yield. This is just one step. There's all these things you got to do. You have to know what you're doing. Even if I just gave this to you, you wouldn't know what to do. So you have to be an experienced chemist to take this and to be able to repeat this. So what is a mindless abiological system? What does it know how to do? Nobody knows.
Nothing.
Next slide.
Zero.
Then you have to characterize it. Once you make what you want, you have to characterize it. So we have this tool called NMR, and you get these peaks. And from these peaks, you assign the structure so you can get the exact structure. This is how all the pharmaceuticals that you take, this is how the structures are assigned. You run these spectra. And you say, well, nature doesn't have to do this. It doesn't. Nature uses a more complex system. It has a different glove for every hand in nature, a different enzyme that detects structure problems. It's more complex than this. This is a general tool. But the next slide shows us how, next slide, this is what we have to write to convince our colleagues that we got what we thought we got. A combination of standard deuterium, proton, C13, depth 135, C13 experiments with standard 2D, H1 COSY, H1 NOE, boom, boom, boom. So you go all through this. Not done. Next slide. So that's part 2. All of that needed to just characterize the one molecule. Characterization is harder than synthesis. It really is. Any chemist will tell you. You can make something, but it takes you a lot longer to characterize. And you have to know the structure because you have to know what to do for the next step. Nature is confronted with the same thing all the time. Making molecules is hard. Next slide.
Yeah, to
this
Nathan.
Paper had 200.
Nathan was asking if science has solved this problem, and no, Nathan, not even close. It's only getting worse. And what they have shown is so highly manipulated, it bears no relevance to the natural world.
Yeah, but if I may say, this lecture is from only last summer, so just barely over a year ago.
Yep.
And yeah, what Dr. James Stewart is saying here is just the facts of it. Nathan, you need to stick around because you haven't seen what the scam and the fraud of the science is yet, and it's going to be shown very plainly here, so that you can know the truth on this topic anyway.
281 pages of supplemental characterization data. I showed you a paragraph of characterization. 281 pages of that to convince the world that we made what we were making when we made those light-driven motorized nanocars.
So that's just for 4-molecule, very simple synthetic microbiological nanomachine.
Right.
Which is absolutely nothing compared to the simplest possible pre-life self-replicator.
No, we can't even get proteins, Nick. We can't even get the correct amino acids and high enough concentrations to do anything.
And then, okay, here we go.
How does a dumb abiological world ever do this? Nobody knows. They're all clueless, but scientists aren't saying how hard it is. Next slide.
Next slide every time. And then, okay, well, we already talked about that a bit. I have another pause in about a minute here.
This was the first generation motor that we put in the car. It worked, but it only rotated 1.8 revolutions per hour. When we rebuild it without that sulfur atom there, then that 5-member ring, then it goes 3 million rotations per second. All right, so small changes can make a big difference. Well, what do you do? Well, what you do is you just come here and you erase that sulfur and you do that. Now that you can do on a blackboard. But this took us back to step one. This is what I'm talking about. When something you're going along and you want to build and you say, oh, I'm just near life. If you have one thing wrong, it doesn't work. So, well, you just modify this and it'll work. All right, go back to the beginning. Go back a billion years to the beginning. It's too hard. Nobody knows how this thing is solved. You can't build the molecules. Next slide.
Okay, so this is something that people don't understand about what's proposed with the gradualness of evolution. And when we're talking about zero mechanism to work it, because chemicals do not tend in that way at all whatsoever, that's just a fact.
Right.
So we have zero mechanism that the chemicals might do that. And we have to use gradual evolution of something that's either going to survive long enough to become self-replicating, or the self-replicating population survives long enough to go in this direction that it has zero tendency for.
I would say you don't even have evolution, really. But
yeah, and the whole thing is that it is just absolutely impossible. Like
yeah.
It fails before it can get anywhere. It doesn't even begin, but if it does begin, every single time it fails at some point before it gets far enough.
Right.
And then it took hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, hundreds of millions of years just to try to form into the first self-replicating one, and it has to start over. It's impossible for it to maintain for the time to evolve. That is not just like imagined, it's impossible. And this is not an of the gaps argument. We're just talking that we scientifically know it's not possible.
Right. And then it's always interference by the chemist. You know, these steps in the lab, again, are not going to work out in nature. So yes, can it be done in a protected laboratory environment? Yes, but it still doesn't lead to life.
And then here we're going to get into a good part, because I marked that I'm going to slow it down. And then we're going to pause in about 3 minutes here.
And then, so remember, these just to make the molecules, the simple molecules. You got to have the carbohydrates. You have to have the lipids. You have to have the nucleic acids. You have to have the proteins. Even if you make an amino acid, how do you hook the amino acids together? Amino acids don't hook together by themselves. We're not even talking about order. How do you just get them to hook? I mean, somebody sent me a paper just last night. I mean, here's a paper just came out on self-folding molecules. Well, duh, that doesn't prove anything. You build a molecule, it folds up. Big deal. How do you get these things to hook together in the first place? Nobody knows.
Exactly.
That's with amino acids. How about with nucleotides? You want to get these things to hook up. People will make you got a nucleotide. We got DNA. No, you don't have DNA. You got to get these nucleotides to hook up. Look at a DNA synthesizer. How many steps of blocking, protection, deprotection you need to do the complex chemistry just to get one linkage made? Nobody knows how. You can throw all these together in a flash. People say, well, the concentration of nucleotides was very high. I've read this in high school books. It was very high. And these things came together. You calculate the concentration, the world would have to be raining nucleotides. And even if it were raining nucleotides at those concentrations, they wouldn't hook up. They don't hook up. You need enzymes to hook them up. But this is prebiotic. There's no enzymes here. Or you need very complex DNA synthesizers. Those weren't there either on early Earth.
Wow.
Now you have to assemble it. So say we had the molecules. How can you get them to assemble? So here's the assembly experiment. A protocell is a self-organized, endogenously ordered spherical collection of lipids proposed as a stepping stone to origin of life. So that's what a protocell is. But most so-called protocell assembly experiments in origin of life research can be summed up by a protocol analogous to this. You purchase homochiral diacetyl lipids from a chemical company, or you synthesize, scramble lipids from smaller molecules. Add those lipids to water and observe a small amount of it to form simple and expected thermodynamically driven assembly of those lipids into synthetic bilayer vesicles upon agitation.
Okay, so I wanted to pause here because what this is talking about is like if you agitate some oil, lipids or fats, then it'll form bubbles. That's basically what we just heard, right?
Yeah, and it's junk. I mean, you can make membranes out of anything. Soap bubbles they've experimented with. So what? They're useless in life.
And then, well, there's not limited evidence available. There's no evidence. And we have a lot of scientifically well-tested, well-verified awareness of chemistry that we have piles of evidence that it's impossible. And there's zero evidence that it even might be possible. So right here, this experiment is you take a lipid and you agitate it so it forms into bubbles, and then let's hear what happens next. Those are called synthetic bilayer vesicles.
And they're junk, by the way. They're garbage.
Yeah, they're just little bubbles of simple fat, but here's the next thing.
Sometimes the researchers will add other molecules that get engulfed by those vesicles. Then you publish.
So I've said this incorrectly before. I'm not going to mention what I said because I don't want to put like any confusion in anyone's brain while they're learning here. But what goes on is as they agitate them, if they have other like biological junk in there already, then as it forms a bubble, they get stuck in there like particles of dust, basically. So then they say, well, look, you can get stuff that this is a biological stuff that cannot exist in a pre-biological world, by the way. But they get this, they stir up oil and the bubbles get junk in them and they call it a protocell. This is absolute fraud. It's an absolute lie. We're not exaggerating that this is a lie. And those of you who have been like believing pop culture, pop science and stuff based on lies like this, I hope this opens your eyes that you want to be aware. There's propaganda, there's people making money, there's people who want certain ideas out of your head. I mean, there's a lot going on. But this is such a lie. Just stirring up bubbles of oil with stuff in the is it water that they do this in? I guess so. The stuff in the water that can get stuck in there and then calling it a protocell when it does absolutely nothing at all in any way whatsoever having to do with anything biological.
Agreed.
So zero. So let me see what I have next.
Well put.
Okay, let's go on.
Paper claiming that the synthetic vesicle is a protocell and suggestive of early forms of life. Engage with the media, hype it up, watch the layperson be misled. Every assembly experiment, I'm telling you, can be summarized in this. Whatever you send me, don't send me anymore. I've dealt with it all right? I get enough of them. And people say, well, what about this one? What about this one? And it fits all into this. It's all garbage. All garbage. Next slide.
Oh, yeah. This was the pause moment.
That's what I said. It's garbage.
garbage. And we're actually going to get into that more later. This is going to be pretty entertaining. Dr. Tour gave us a lot to work with here. So hopefully this video will be allowed to stay up since I'm showing like half of this program on it. But please do go to the links, study up on this stuff, and it's pretty simple, and he's laying it out so simply. And then what are they going to propose as the beginning of life? Because it is not anything remotely like this.
Next slide. Okay, so the complex cellular membrane. So this is actually what the membrane of a cell looks like when it's made really, really simple in cartoon form. So researchers have identified thousands, actually 40,000 different lipids now have been identified in cell.
Yeah, I am going to go too fast for everyone. So if you really want to learn this, watch it on your own. Here we go.
Membranes, not just one. Every protocell experiment, they use one type of lipid. Actually, a cell is made up of thousands of different types. And mixtures of monoacyl lipids destabilize the system. So when they have their monoacyl lipids, those would destabilize the systems. You can't use those. Lipid bilayers surround subcellular organelles, such as nuclei and mitochondria, which are themselves microsystem assemblies. Each of these has their own lipid composition.
No, there's a couple of these guys in the audience who are not going to slow this down and watch it later. I want you guys to actually learn this.
Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so the complex cellular membrane. So this is actually what the membrane of a cell looks like when it's made really, really simple in cartoon form. So researchers have identified thousands, actually 40,000 different lipids now have been identified in cell membranes, not just one. Every protocell experiment, they use one type of lipid. Actually, a cell is made up of thousands of different types. And mixtures of monoacyl lipids destabilize the system. So when they have their monoacyl lipids, those would destabilize the systems. You can't use those. Lipid bilayers surround subcellular organelles, such as nuclei and mitochondria, which are themselves microsystem assemblies. Each of these has their own lipid composition. So this is a lipid bilayer. You have some pointing out toward water, some pointing in toward the water on the interior of the cell. And the outside ones are different than the inside ones. Nobody knows how that was done. Nobody knows. Clueless. Nobody knows how that was done. Every protocell experiment just uses homogeneity throughout the whole thing. And
Yeah.
so it's not really a protocell. It's not really reminiscent of a cell. Now,
And Nick, that's something I was talking to Speed of Pudding about, and these other atheists who will ridicule us. Oh, how can you start an experiment with a bunch of random chemicals? That's exactly what chemists are doing, and they're showing that it fails every time. And that's what would be available on the early Earth. You wouldn't have chemicals and amino acids in pure form, in high concentrations. Like he said, you could have raining nucleotides, still wouldn't hook anything together. So yes, chemists do start their experiments with random mixtures of chemicals, and they fail every time.
Yeah, and in this age of scientific progress, zero progress.
Right.
In what is now, I think 68 years.
Yeah.
Each one of those, you have other organelles like nuclei and mitochondria that have their own bilayer assemblies with their own constitution, different than what's on the outside of the cell. Nobody knows how that was done. Plus, these have these proteins. So there's this non-symmetric distribution. Then there's proteins that go through here. These are ionophores that allow certain things into the cell and certain things out. Without that, you can't let anything into the cell. It's going to kill the cell. It has very discrete sensors that allow certain molecules to get in, certain other molecules to get out. It has ionophores that allow certain ions in, certain ions out to keep the ionic concentration at a certain level for maintenance of that cell. As soon as that ionic concentration gets off, you know what happens? Boom! The cell explodes.
Yeah,
because
Nathan.
the ionic concentration.
Nick. Yeah, no, Nathan.
yeah,
James. Yeah, Nathan in the chat. I'm sorry, man. Nathan. No, James is saying that these experiments and these conditions would never be available on the early Earth. And the more we learn, the worse it's getting. The target for abiogenesis just gets pushed back further and further. So decade after decade, they're failing under prebiotic conditions. The only way they can get even just a few life-friendly building blocks is through interference by the chemist, purifying and manipulating every step of the experiment.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that James Tour is laying out a lot of real facts, but we're not hearing here, because you're saying all he is saying is that we still don't know the origins of life, but we actually have no plausible start to theorizing about it at all whatsoever. So that's not just not knowing. You're downplaying it. And if you're downplaying it, I mean, that's really weak sauce as far as logic goes, and it seems to be untrue.
Yeah, it doesn't help their camp. You're not helping your side by saying, "Oh, we don't know the exact conditions." Okay, so what? Even if we had every life-friendly molecule in some tiny little micro environment, and I actually asked James Torr that when I had a discussion with him. He said, "Okay, yeah, let's give chemists everything they need in pure form. Hook it all together and bring it to life." And they still can't do it.
And Brother Tony, I would like to do like a follow-up to this, maybe in a couple weeks or something, where we could go point by point over the whole video that you did.
Yeah.
And let you like really say everything you want to say about every little point on it. I'd like to do that.
Right. Sure.
So here we go.
It's gotten off. It blebs and explodes. Nobody knows how that is done. None of the protocell experiments, none of them have these proteins going through them as these control gateways. Then there's also lipid bilayers have a vast number of carbohydrate appendages. So off of these, this is a carbohydrate appendage. It's called a glycan. The artist is just showing us a few of these. A cell is covered with these. This is how cells recognize each other. How does one cell recognize another cell? By these carbohydrate assemblies that they recognize each other. They have these recognition patterns. And so you can tell one cell from another. And so if you just take nucleotides, if you just take DNA, DNA is so complex and it has so much information. If you have 6 A bases, A, how can you arrange those? What are the different ways you can arrange it? Just that one, A. That's it. One way you can arrange 6 bases. Look at carbohydrates. If you just take the carbohydrate D-pyranose, just a standard carbohydrate, just D-pyranose, you have 6 of those. Has over 1 trillion ways it can assemble. 1 trillion ways it can assemble just with 6 of them. These have much more than 6. And if it's not assembled right, guess what? The cell dies. You change any one of the carbohydrates, it results in cell death. There is much more information stored in carbohydrate assembly than in DNA.
Basically, there's much more that can go wrong than right, whether it's in a lab or out in nature. That's what he's saying, Nathan.
Yeah, the precision of the information in the carbohydrates, which the cells use to identify each other, we think of the information being so much in the DNA. Well, the DNA is programming a pre-planned process that is so precise that then it's resulting in these extremely uber precise carbohydrate configurations that if they change at all, the organism dies. Where if you just have 6 letters in the code and they're all the same letter, because you can change the directions of the letter to change it's not even alphabetical at that point, but the point is that it identifies by that level of detail. You could have 1 trillion different possibilities.
Right.
So if anything were to be slightly different in how it's done, then it won't identify. And I don't know how often there is what level of room for error of precision of shape reading. We're getting into some nitty-gritty detail with that one.
You have the same problem with the amino acids as well. You have to select out all the left-handed ones. The only way this can be done is by designed equipment in the lab with an intelligent chemist doing it, purifying it. So where's the natural mechanism that that's going to happen out in nature? They have nothing.
Yeah, and then even when we say these things, like sort of what you just said, it's like you said an inch, and the Evo's ear is taking a foot from it.
Yeah, right.
Because like even the hypothetical was impossible for a bunch of other reasons that Tony didn't name. He's saying, granted, a ton of impossibilities somehow happen. It's still impossible for yet one more reason. And that's how bad this abiogenesis thing is that every argument is supported by just like an endless list of more arguments of how it's impossible. We have no concept that there's any potential theoretical possibility here.
Yeah. Much more information can be stored in carbohydrates. You want to build a massive computer, build it based on carbohydrate assembly. Much better than DNA assembly. This is a carbohydrate assembly. It's really hard to control. Nobody knows how to control this. Nobody. But somehow, on a prebiotic Earth, with nobody around, under a rock, it figured this out.
Yeah.
How do
exactly.
origin of life researchers address this problem? They don't. They don't. Next slide.
Right. And that's what I've been saying. None of this is addressed in any way, and it's ignored. And, you know, just keep believing these papers like speed of pudding. I've got, what did he say? 1,200 papers every year come out on abiogenesis. I haven't read any of them, though.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
They're all a
if I
failure.
wanted to believe, if I wanted to believe what Speed of Pudding wants to believe, I wouldn't read the papers either, because I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to read about agitated oils absorbing pre-provided junk that was in the water,
Right.
as if that's a protocell.
Right. And that's plausible and going to lead to life. Okay.
Non-covalent interactions that function within a cell. Nobody knows how a viable cell emerges from massive combinatorial complexity of its molecular components. And of course, nobody's ever synthetically mimicked it. An interactome is the whole set of molecular interactions in a particular cell. If one merely considers protein-protein interaction combinations in just a single yeast cell, the result is an estimated 10 to the 79 billion combinations. That's estimated by these folks at Johns Hopkins and Brussels, all right? That's not my estimation. These are biophysicists, all right? So just to give you an idea of how big that number is, that's 10 to the 90th is the number of elemental particles in the universe. That's 10 to the 90th. This is 10 to the 79 billion. That's a big, big number. People do not understand numbers. They just don't. You say $1 million, $1 billion, what's the difference? $1 million or $1 billion? Well, let me put it in a way that you understand. 1 million seconds is 11 days. So you ask somebody, will you marry me? I'll tell you in 1 million seconds. Okay. If they say 1 billion seconds, that's 32 years. All right? You feel that now? 1 million to 1 billion? And then if they say 1 trillion seconds, that's 32,000 years. Huh? You see the difference when you go up 3 orders of magnitude? You go 1 million, 10 to the 6th, to 10 to the 9th, to 10 to the 12th. That's 10 to the 79 billion. That number's crazy big. That's just in a single yeast cell. The interactions between the
If this is what gets annoying when they say that we don't understand odds because they think that we're applying them wrong and that we're not applying the multiple rolls of the dice that they think are taking that they're taking, you know? And it's like the amount of rolls of the dice just to get the first tiny step that would be required, and then the next tiny step, and you have so many billions of tiny steps at the very least, and there's no possibility. If you keep applying the probability all the way through, do some thought experiments, you know.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Use some of your intuition. Everything you learned in your brain as a baby, you learned by intuition. All of your logic and reasoning is also founded on intuition. So if you want to, you know, exercise that intuition and start thinking about how these really work, like how many dice rolls you'd need, how many sides are on the die, and you're never going to get anywhere near a success even once, even though we have supposedly trillions of microscopic molecular situations that are rolls of dice. We are talking about applying these numbers fully, and there's just no indication that there's anything plausible or possible here.
Correct.
Non-bonded interactions. So how does information flow? Information flows through non-bonded interactions through electrostatic potentials, which physicists call a virtual photon. Information goes down these at the speed of light. That depends on ordering between molecules, non-covalent interactions. These have to be all kind of assembled right. And that's why this information, you don't dehydrate cells and rehydrate them and get them to work properly. When a cell divides, it collapses down, puts the information on both halves, and brings it into both sides. So that information keeps going to the next and the next generation. Because when you lose these intermolecular interactions that are non-covalent, non-attached, you've lost your information flow. Big problem. Nobody has explained. Nobody in Origin of Life ever mentions the word interactomes. Never will you hear it in their literature. Next slide.
Cowards.
Proto-turkeys. Origin of Life protocell assembly is akin to buying 20 pounds of sliced turkey meat, adding a gallon of turkey broth, warming, sticking a few feathers, and suggesting that a live turkey will eventually come gobbling out. If given enough time,
yeah,
or that a proto-turkey or extant turkey has been synthesized. This is exactly what is done in origin of life experiments. It's exactly what is done. If given enough time, a turkey is going to come out. And people buy this stuff. There's a whole area of research called origin of life research, and they've been doing this same thing since 1952. Next slide.
Yeah, garbage.
Same garbage.
Garbage, right.
Since 1952.
Amazing.
And it's disgusting. It's absolutely.
And this is what they're teaching at the big universities as scientific and so plausible.
And you got to realize that, like, anyone who has honor is going to find out that this field is not worth going into.
Right.
And they're not going to go into it. Lee Cronin is playing word games and stuff, and he's doing something that's not really associated with he's focusing on hopefully finding some kind of source of information. He's not anywhere remotely close yet, but I do want to, I always mention him that he's doing something different than what's being critiqued here, but it also is not providing any evidence whatsoever for abiogenesis yet.
No.
So that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, he's actually trying to produce inorganic life, and all he's showing is the role of the investigator. That's it. That there has to be an intelligent chemist present to do the very first step, even.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, it's stupidity. It's a dead field of science that no one wants to admit. There's a lot of money behind it, and of course a lot of atheists that just keep pushing it, especially on the internet. And it's a bunch of garbage.
Critical for life is the origin of information, DNA or RNA. The information is primary and the matter is secondary. We can't even get the matter, carbohydrates, nucleic acids, lipids, proteins, let alone the information.
And remember, people are thinking that this information is limited to the complexity of the code of DNA, but actually the what we could call the literal bits of the carbohydrates that are far more complex and require a far more level of specified complexity than DNA.
Yeah.
So that's part of this information that's being talked about here.
Right.
That's primary to the physical matter. So then you have a chicken and the egg problem.
Yeah, with everything in the cell, everything, DNA, RNA, proteins, enzymes, everything. Your cell membrane, all your molecular machinery.
Yep, I mean, doesn't matter whether it's the chicken or the egg first, someone had to make it. It did not just make itself. That's not possible.
Correct.
What is the code? Even if you had the nucleic acids and even if you could hook them up, what's the code? Where do you get that code? So we heard a little bit about this earlier in this conference. The information is primary. That's the information. It can be stored on all sorts of mediums. So I have
exactly. Where are you getting the code from? This is what godless engineers mantra. Oh, it's just chemical reactions. Okay, you have everything you need. And how do you hook it all together? They can't do it.
And right here, James Tour is about to give some examples and stuff. In the interest of time, I'm skipping ahead here.
Oh, Kevin's in the room. Okay, Kevin. Yeah, we're going to hear a lot of nonsense right now.
So let's see, right about here.
In books that people read, people like you. What is life? I never read these books. You never see people like me read these books. This is the masses, but this is what they tell you. So here's this science writer, Regis. He says, life began with little bags of garbage, random assortments of molecules doing some crude kind of metabolism. That is stage one. The garbage bags grow and occasionally split into two, and the ones that grow and split fastest win. That's in his book on what is life.
Kevin. Sorry, Nick. Kevin, he said at the beginning of the talk, this is to Kevin, he wasn't going to talk about any religious doctrine, Jesus Christ, or anything to do with religion or even intelligent design. He's just critiquing the chemistry and how it's failing under prebiotic conditions. So get a brain and actually listen.
Yeah, and what I put in the thumbnail was that he's offering truth in the name of truth, Jesus Christ. And what I mean by that is this man has been in the truth of Jesus Christ since he was 18. And he is one of the most accomplished scientists ever. He's just incredible. And that's a truth discipline.
Yeah.
And now he's
Okay.
telling us the truth when it's unpopular. And Jesus Christ is the truth. And he does agree with that, but that's not part of his argument here. So in my thumbnail where I say he's sharing the truth in the name of truth, Jesus Christ, he's a shining example of why. When someone believes the truth, they can be so much more powerful in science. And this guy is way ahead of
well, Kevin's just a
every
moron.
abiogenesis supposed scientist. There's just no comparison. It's like comparing a toddler to a gold medalist. If you're comparing abiogenesis supposed scientists,
right? And if yeah, and Kevin, if there's such overwhelming accumulating evidence for abiogenesis in the past, 70, 80 years, why doesn't your atheist community actually show it? Because it's decade after decade of failure. So obviously this chemistry isn't working.
And then he came in late too, because Kevin, you got to see the video from the beginning. It's a big topic, and we're scraping a little bit into the depth of it. Not much, but a little bit. But
he wants to come in.
No one's coming. No one's coming in right now at the moment because we're almost done with what we're doing here. But afterward, we can open up discussion.
Sure.
So let's go.
University Press. Well, few origin of life researchers would state it so shamelessly. Nonetheless, little bags of garbage are precisely what they've been making. And those little bags of garbage have little more resemblance to living cells than a big bag of garbage to a horse. Right? Next slide.
And so these are the protocells essentially. Is that right? The bags of garbage.
Yeah, which is garbage.
But their theory, because they're bags of garbage in their experiments, they want to connect that to the quote pre-cellular life, I guess, the very first living self-replicator. So it's a bag of garbage that splits into two bags of garbage. But if it's able to split and replicate itself with accuracy, it's not a bag of garbage, it's a cell. The whole reason he's describing it that way is he wants to connect what their bags of garbage are in their experiments to reality, and there is no connection.
There's none. Yeah, soap bubbles can do the same thing. So what? You want to call that a precursor to life?
So you say, well, that's a book from 2009. Well, let me show you the primary literature. 2018 in the journal Nature. This is our top journal. You want to see what Nature will publish in this area? None of us could get away with this, except origin of life researchers do. This guy is Nobel laureate Jack Szostak. Here's what he writes on how did life begin. Let's go through it. I'm interested in it. How did life begin? The guy's a Nobel Prize winner. He must know. The early atmosphere had no oxygen. It consisted mainly of nitrogen, carbon dioxide with smaller amounts of hydrogen, water, and methane. Lightning, asteroid impacts, UV light from the sun acted on the atmosphere to generate hydrogen cyanide, a compound of hydrogen, carbon, and nitrogen. Raining into volcanic or crater lakes, the cyanide reacted with iron, brought up water circulating through rocks. The resulting iron cyanide compounds accumulated over time, building up into a concentration.
Okay, I just want to mention for a second here, raining into volcanic or crater lakes, the cyanide reacted with iron, brought up by water circulating through rocks. Now, there's water circulating through rocks. This is where they want to get their temperature changes from. If you remember, James Tour earlier was saying you got to use higher temperatures for this reaction, lower ones for this one. If we want to make this 4-molecule nano car, we got to do this intense process of many, many steps just for one step of this 281-page process. And
strict protocols and procedures, Yeah,
please, Tony, elaborate a little bit on the precision, because my understanding is you work in chemistry in some way, maybe pharmaceutical or something.
Yeah, pharmaceutical compounds and things of that. I'm not an origin of life chemist, but yes, every procedure, you have to stop the experiment, run a purification cleansing system, and then restart the experiment. That's exactly what he's talking about. So just if you could generate, say, all right-handed sugars, okay, so what? What are you going to do with them? They're not going to hook together. And then from there, you have a following step. Everything has to be purified going into the next step. Who's doing this? How is nature ever going to achieve this?
And I'm
It
sorry
does.
to interrupt, but I have to interrupt and put this at a layman level for everyone, because they're talking about the circulating water through the rocks is going to do this extremely difficult, precise work of chemistry through billions of steps to create the first self-replicating pre-life. This
Right.
is so stupid absurd. And if
Yeah,
you're, this is why we get harsh when people want, well, no, that's the DNA being code thing. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's so frustrating for us. It's so frustrating because the facts are out, and this is absolutely absurd. And anyone proposing abiogenesis in any way whatsoever is being incredibly willfully, well, maybe not willfully ignorant, but is incredibly ignorant on the topic. And then if they're interested and fascinated by it and looking into it and stuff, they're being very willfully ignorant. And that's damaging to your ability to seek truth. It damages the way your mind works. Your mind is now working in a way to deny truth.
Yeah, like Kevin, this troll in your chat who's going to refute somebody like James Tor. Kevin, why don't you just produce life and get your $10 million by Perry Marshall? Why don't you actually teach all these chemists how to produce life from non-life? Because they can't even do it.
Stew of reactive chemicals. Okay, cool. Where are we? Life, as we know it, requires RNA. Some scientists believe that RNA emerged directly from these reactive chemicals, nudged along by dynamic forces in the environment. Huh? Nudged has no, you can't put nudged in any of our articles. No scientist knows what nudged means. They don't know. Nucleotides, the building blocks of RNA, eventually form, then join together to make strands of RNA. Some stages of the process are still not well understood.
Yeah.
You think? How do these things hook together? Show me the chemistry. It's not there. Once RNA was made, some strands of it become enclosed within tiny vesicles formed by spontaneous assembly of fatty acid lipids in the membranes, creating the first protocells.
Okay, once RNA was made, some strands of it became enclosed within tiny vesicles. So these are the oil bubbles, but this is the theoretical of what supposedly happened in the prebiotic world.
Yeah.
That so once RNA was made by all this nonsense above, some strands of it became enclosed within tiny vesicles, little bubbles of lipid, formed. And they can't just be bubbles of lipid. Well, anyway, formed by the spontaneous assembly of fatty acids, lipids, into membranes. So, would I be right in generalizing this, Tony, that it's water with fat, you stir it, and if you have water inside the bubble and outside, you now have the fatty membrane?
Yes, and in salt water, you have a hydrolysis problem. Everything's breaking down. You need distilled water, which wouldn't be available on the early Earth.
Oh, and then remember we talked earlier about how they're just stirring simple fat
Yes.
with junk and calling it protocells.
Right, a
Now they're
membrane.
trying to connect that to reality, that in
Right.
theory, creating the first protocells. This is such stupid lies. So like Nathan, Kevin, I'm not sure what side you're on, Vegeta, but I haven't been reading the chat, but whoever else is out there, like, we are honest people. Hang out with us some, give us a chance, because you're seeing that there's lies in the world. There's lies in the pop culture. There's lies in your atheist movement. And we have flaws here, in our Christianity, but we have each other's backs, especially here in this specific community here. I know Christians have been very flawed and all that, but this is such downright lying fraud. It's a disgrace.
Who is this Kevin guy anyway? Is this a troll? Is he? Who is this guy?
I don't know. I've
What
probably
a
seen
joke.
him around, but I'm just a bit busy
Or
at
is
the
it
moment.
praise?
I'm not really thinking about.
Yeah, you're a joke, Kevin.
So, okay,
Totally.
we just have a couple more minutes total to check out.
As the membranes incorporated more fatty acids, they grew and divided. At the same time, internal chemical reactions drove replication of encapsulated RNA. That is nonsense.
Okay, so suddenly when the RNA that couldn't exist gets stirred into a simple lipid layer,
Yeah.
then a chemical reaction starts replicating the RNA. Now that's factually, we know that today there are no organisms that chemically replicate their RNA. They use physical mechanisms. And what I mean by that is that the road is made of like rocks and tar and stuff. It's made of chemicals. The tire is made of chemicals, some kind of like crude oil, rubber, mixing a bunch of stuff. I don't know much about it. But the road and the car and the tire are made of chemicals. But the traction is not a chemical reaction. Friction is not a chemical reaction. It's a physical reaction. There are physical processes required for these replications to happen. It is not only chemistry. That is another lie.
Yeah, Kevin, if you want to actually refute any of this stuff, yeah, I mean, let's hear it. Because you have nothing. You're not refuting James Tour. No one's producing life. No one's coming close. No one's producing any life-friendly molecules that are leading to anything. We actually do know that. There's good chemistry that supports that. There's no chemistry that supports abiogenesis. Not even close.
Yeah, and Kevin's been missing the video. So, Kevin, you'll have to go back and watch the video. If you want to subscribe and set the bell to all, then if you want to be here in time to actually like see the stuff and not be saying stuff that we already refuted earlier and sounding, I mean, I don't know if you sound foolish because you weren't here. You'd sound more foolish if you were here for it and you were saying this stuff. That would be even worse.
Yeah, he's a clown.
Yeah, let's just go on. He just wasn't here.
Slide. Here is, next slide, the figure that he showed. This is the figure. From nature, this is his figure. Cyanide derivatives and simple sugars. Those are not sugars. He says this is oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus. That's fictitious. I don't know any sugars that have that chemical composition. You don't know that. He's lying to you.
Oh, did you hear that, Kevin? They're not sugars. Did you hear that? He'll say they are, though. This is, the attitude of the atheist community. Oh, yeah, we can actually produce all the correct sugars under plausible prebiotic conditions. Right, Kevin? Yeah, this is how delusional they are, Nick.
Well, then just let's listen to the tone in Dr. Tour's voice when he says that, because Dr. Tour loves you guys. And Kevin, you can call Dr. Tour and he'll talk to you. Atheists, anyone who's like not a believer, he'll talk to them to preach to them. And so you have an open line to call him. And I'll track down that phone number and I'll put it in the description with the links and stuff so that by tomorrow, you can call him yourself if you want, Kevin.
He says this is oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus. That's fictitious. I don't know any sugars that have that chemical composition. You don't know that. He's lying to you.
You hear that? Like in that look on his face,
Yeah, no, Kevin Shea knows more. Kevin's going to solve the chemistry. He knows more. Yeah.
It hurts us that these people are lying to you guys.
Really.
And I don't know of any motivation for believing abiogenesis besides a desire to deny God, because there's nothing about abiogenesis that has any merit. So we got 1 minute left of this, and then it's going to be a little bit more about Jesus.
That's not real. Is this HCN? I mean, there should be a carbon, a nitrogen, and a hydrogen if that's HCN. And I'm colorblind. I can see that's not really HCN. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's phosphate. I can see that'd be phosphorus, oxygen. Maybe that's phosphate. Okay. And then all of a sudden, boom, you got an RNA nucleotide. But the problem is that's not a nucleotide. It's the wrong structure. By far, that's the wrong structure. He didn't even put the right structure. At least he could have put the right structure. He didn't put the right structure. Well, what's acting upon us to make it do this? Well, heat from here, UV light from there. Boom. Nobody knows. That's in nature. That's not in an 8th grade textbook from 2018. People think
And then, Tony, we're getting feedback from you.
Yeah.
If you.
Oh, okay.
If
Yeah,
you
you
can
want to
just
let
mute when you're
Kevin
not talking for now, or.
selectively choose these things from crazy places. No, this is nature 2018.
Yeah, so people accuse him of selectively choosing these from certain places. It's nature 2018. Look at that look on his face of the indignation against that sort of lying in that sort of place. And this has been going on for almost 70 years. Zero progress. Lies, lies, lies for 7 decades. But the pressure in the scientific community is such that these lies, James Tour, why is he able to expose them? Because he is so qualified that they cannot stop him. God, truth, gave him the power to do this, but other scientists can't do this. It would end their careers. But what
Right.
happens if they end James Tour's career? They lose trillions of dollars if they end James Tour's career. So he can say this. But this pressure in the community, same thing is going on with all the conjecture around evolutionism. There's not the actual support, but there's the pressure to pretend there's support and to keep insisting there's support. And we see proof of that pressure here. So when you try to act like we're just pulling that out of our rear ends when we talk about the scientific pressure, no, this is an obvious fact. Look how obvious this is. The only reason it costs trillions of dollars to be able to do this. He's worth trillions of dollars to people who make money. That's why he's allowed to get away with this. If he was only worth millions, he would not be able to say this and get away with it.
And morons like Kevin Shea and the internet atheist community that think all this solved stuff is on its way to being solved. You know, any day now, they're so close.
Now, all of this stuff in abiogenesis is just made up, complete and utter garbage.
Agreed.
And if it wasn't for consideration of what I try to limit for certain audiences, that's a place where in other places I would have pulled out the hard cuss words. Sometimes that's called for, and it's called for there. Nathan, if you're going to be this ignorant, this is so scary for you. My life has gone down the darkness of untruth. Do you have any idea what you're in for if you love darkness rather than light, because light exposes your evil deeds? And we've had discussions about this before on other streams. I'm not going to call him out here or somewhere else. He's not a public figure, but you know what I'm talking about, Nathan. And this ignorance,
Total
because
joke.
you don't want to own up to what you've done wrong. Okay, so that's the whole scientific part mostly, and then we're gonna get into Jesus and stuff. You know, the after show from the debate the other day, Nathan. You want to justify what you've done wrong, so you don't want to know God exists. And the level of ignorance here that you're showing is so extreme that there's no way you can argue that that's not what's going on. It's so obvious at this point. Okay, you murdered your own child, Nathan. I tried to make it not a big public thing, but you said you murdered your own child. You found it beneficial, so you want other people to also benefit from murdering their own children. And just for the record, we're talking about preborn murder that the law does not recognize as murder in these circumstances. Okay, do I have any mods here? Is Jungle Jargon a mod? Hold on a second. Sorry about this. Oh, I don't even have my YouTube open to this right now. Because, okay, whatever. We're going to ignore Nathan. But if there's any mods out there, just keep timing him out for the remainder of this stream.
Whoever Kevin is, what a joke. You're a joke, Kevin. You haven't refuted anything. Abiogenesis is a total disaster.
I can just get to this video real fast. So, yeah, go ahead and say something you want to say about abiogenesis for a minute, brother.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to come in later, yeah, let's have a talk with Kevin, whoever he is. He hasn't refuted anything. None of this stuff works under any plausible prebiotic environment. If you've actually wanted to listen and learn anything that James Tour said, which you don't, because it would damage your atheistic abiogenesis narrative, and you don't want that. You're a joke, Kevin.
Oh, cool. George already took care of it for me. Nice. But I made a few more mods. And Sunflower and I had a disagreement about something he said once, but we talked about it. So I think Sunflower knows what kind of standard I like. So I went ahead and trusted him to be a mod. He's one of our brothers. Okay, now back on the actual topic of the video here. Oh yeah, this one's done. We're going to switch now to, so in apologetics, right? James Tour doesn't really use this in apologetics, but in this whole culture war, it is very important to note that there's no semblance of plausible possibility for abiogenesis. And you can keep checking out James Tour a little more. These videos are engaging, they're short, they're easy to follow. and get some of these good points down about the nonsense of it, you know? And it's not like this is just the bad research and he's cherry picking. There actually is nothing besides all this garbage. That's what the abiogenesis field is.
Right. Manipulated garbage, prepackaged synthetic kits with high concentrations of chemicals that would never be available on the early Earth. And that's pretty much what James Tor said. So,
and then I also want to make the point that hold on one second, I'm juggling a couple things here. So I want to make the point real quick. I was multitasking and it slipped my mind.
when he had that slide up where he said all origin of life experiments fit into that category of, manipulated conditions, prepared synthetic kits. That was what I have been saying. I've been saying that for 10 years all over the internet. So there you have a chemist saying the same thing, and the internet atheist community is oh no.
Yeah, and the people keep giving him more papers, and in order to do his due diligence so that he can be a man of his word, he has to keep wasting his time on more and more of these garbage papers. And he's doing that for you because he loves you, and his time is worth so much money. It's worth spreading the gospel. This man has valuable time, and he spent it so that you guys who don't want to know God can know the truth on this topic. And then I also just want to say that his reputation is at stake. If there's actually good abiogenesis research out there and he's misrepresenting this, then people who are angry about this can attack him. And his reputation is it's a valuable reputation to put on the line, but he doesn't mind putting it on the line for this because the facts are so blatant.
Right.
And so I just got to switch which one I'm sharing real quick. And let me make sure I know what it's called. I'm just going to close all the other ones so that I don't have to risk being mixed up on anything. So almost got it on the screen. Here we go. Oh, this is about, this is more of the science, actually. One last piece.
Reaction. So time does not solve the issue. It's been reduced. So the aldehyde from the carbohydrate has gone back to an alcohol. So there's competing reaction. So time does not solve the issue. The other problem is if you had...
It's no sound on this one, Nick.
Oh, I don't know if I missed the button. I thought I was paying close attention to those things, but a little bit scatter-brained. I might have missed it. Let's try again.
So the aldehyde from the carbohydrate has gone back to an alcohol. So there's competing.
So how are we?
Good now.
Okay, competing reactions.
React. So time does not solve the issue. The other problem is if you had 400 million years to get to a certain point in a synthesis of a particular class of compounds, now you run out of material. Anytime you do synthesis, you run out of material, even when you've optimized deals, and you got to go back to the beginning. Well, say it took you 400 million years to get to a certain point on a synthesis. Now you have to go back and make more. But how do you go back and make more? Because nature never kept a laboratory notebook, doesn't know how to go back, never kept a record. So even if it could make more, it doesn't know how to. So it's got to start all over again somehow. But it doesn't know how to start over again, doesn't know why to start over again, because it doesn't know what it's going toward. So if you look at it, people have been trying for a long time. If we just take Miller-Urey as the first example, where Miller and Urey took some basic chemicals that are presumed on a prebiotic earth, hydrogen cyanide, formaldehyde, and CO2, and they put those across a high voltage, simulating lightning, you can get some racemic amino acids out of those. But those racemic amino acids were racemic. Okay, that was in 1952. That was 2/3 of a century ago. What has happened in 2/3 of a century?
Okay, so this is where he's saying that 68 years ago, it was 67 years ago here, so he's saying 2/3 of a century, that they did get some kind of result of something at all whatsoever in abiogenesis. It was very, very little, not enough to imply that they can get anywhere, but they did get one tiny piece of this huge puzzle, and that is the last tiny piece of the huge puzzle that they have gotten. It's been 70 years. They have not gotten even one incy bitty tiny little piece of the puzzle in 70 years. That's what he's talking about
And
here.
they were useless racemic amino acids that were in a stereo scrambled backward configuration that couldn't even go on to produce one single protein molecule.
And they were never able to improve it from there. And all this time, it has not been improved one tiny iota at all whatsoever.
At all. And this is what the entire internet atheist community is trying to pass off as, oh, it was such a huge success, the Miller experiment. We've made such advancements since then. No, you haven't.
I mean, people want to know what the advancements are, but they're always talking about the Mueller experiment from 70 years ago because there are none.
Right.
That's just the fact.
Since Miller-Urey in other fields, well, we've had human space flight. We have satellite connectivity. We have the internet. We have the entire silicon era of microchips, and we have computer technology. We have all of this. In the same 66 years, 2/3 of a century, we are still exactly where Miller and Urey were. We make a barrage of stereo scrambled chemicals, nowhere close to even knowing how to make them and hook them together. They got to get hooked together in the proper order. We are clueless on this, clueless, because time doesn't solve this. Even with all our ingenuity, time is not going to solve the problem. You let these chemicals that have been made, you let them sit around, even for months, and you can look even in the origin of life researchers themselves. When they've let these go for weeks, they show the degradation of these in a period of weeks. Weeks is the twinkling of an eye when it comes to prebiotic timescales. The chemicals decompose. The environment for the chemicals, environment rich in ammonia, is going to turn carbonyls into imines. These are going to cause further destruction. The ammonia environment itself is quite basic. You're going to have extended aldol reactions coming on. So to think that the molecules could be made and sit there waiting for other molecules to come in, it doesn't happen. Organic chemistry doesn't work that way. Any student that is lazy enough to set up reactions and like to go home for the weekend without working them up pays the price for that.
Right.
With a depressed yield,
down.
generally.
Breaks down and turns into tars and useless acids. Epistemology and gaming. How are we being dishonest? We're presenting all the problems with abiogenesis. The chemistry is failing under prebiotic conditions. How are we being dishonest?
Yeah, I don't even know what this is about. We're just setting some scientific facts straight. We have the most qualified expert in the world. You can watch the video from the beginning, and you can email me at proclaimerofmessiah@gmail.com. You can make a response video or something. I mean, do whatever you want, you know? But if you watch this from the beginning, you'll see that we're very, very, very solid here. And so when you come in late into something that was already established really solid and talk like it's not solid, it just shows your lack of knowledge, because we've already done the due diligence in the past hour and 20 minutes that we've been here addressing the topic.
Yeah, if you want to let Kevin Shea in, yeah.
The part about where people who kill defenseless humans just because they have not yet exited the womb, that somehow it's not right to call them murderers. I mean, hey, you know, the whole world's been waiting for a good argument on that one. If you're the first one with a good argument with your excellent epistemology and, you know, the insights that come with gaming skills, I do know about that, then go ahead and make some kind of video. I mean, I've been out here talking and stuff, and the truthfulness of what I say is my only credential, and it's been going well for me. So go do your own thing and give it a shot. And, email me if that's what you're already doing or something. You know, we can start a war or something. I don't know, whatever you're looking to do. So, yeah, I mean, I have no right to judge anyone. God judges, truth judges, and it's judge lest we would be judged. I would rather that if I was a murderer, I would be judged for it. And if I kill someone without justification, then go ahead and give me the death penalty if you want. And so there, I'm willing to be judged just like I judge others. So We are square. Thanks for the discussion, epistemology. Now, we're almost done with this clip, and then we're going to get more about Jesus here. Sorry I let that get so distracting, but hopefully it was entertaining or something.
As soon as the reactions are done, or as soon as what you want is the optimized yield, you have to stop that reaction, get it away from the starting materials, or else what happens is it goes on to polymerized product. Especially when you're making kinetic products, which is not the thermodynamically most stable product, which is exactly what you get in many of the chemicals that are needed for life. So time is actually the enemy.
And I skipped some of it for time's sake, but Dr. Tour did also specify that the very same processes that create the chemicals have to be stopped before they overdo it and then destroy the chemicals or decompose them.
Correct. I'm going to take off, Nick, if you're going to have an open mic. Do you want me to come back?
Oh, what are you asking?
I was going to take off. If you want me to come back, if you're going to have an open mic, I'll come back and discuss. Did you want me to
I don't
stay?
know. I think this is a good, just like abiogenesis video. Dr. Tour is going to bring the focus back around to Jesus.
Okay, go ahead.
And we could
Sure.
end it. We could even end it there without an open mic and just make this like the whole rundown on abiogenesis.
Yeah, it fails. There's nothing. There's no working scenario, coherent model that's ever led to anything. There's nothing there.
So let me see. I have the next clip pulled up. It's from another show
Okay.
that Dr. Tour was on. And this is really cool. This is where we get into the heart for Jesus.
Great.
Got it. And don't miss the audio. There it is.
It was about the third week into Kathy's weight loss battle.
I really want my audience to get to know you for many reasons. Let's just start with your professional credentials. Tell us, you did a short video the other day that I watched where you went on and on about your credentials, and then you said, but the most important thing was you're a Jew who believes Jesus is the Messiah. So what are some of those credentials? And I'll fill in the ones that you're ashamed to mention.
Well, the only reason
Ones that you're ashamed. So what are some of those? Tell us, you did a short video the other day that I watched where you went on and on about your credentials, and then you said, but the most important thing was
Hey, Nick, let's bring in Kevin.
Jesus is the Messiah.
Let's
so what are
bring
some
in
of those
Kevin.
credentials? And I'll fill in the ones that
Yeah, if you want to, it's up to you if you want to bring in Kevin. I'd like to talk to him. Come on in, Kevin, if you want to bring him in.
Yeah, I'll do this Jesus stuff at the end of the show as a good bring back around to our Messiah, and we can
All
bring
right.
people in now. So I'll put the invite in the into the side chat.
Let's bring him in now, if you
Yeah,
can.
I'm inviting
back.
them right now.
Yeah, and then we can go back to where he was talking about protocells, and he's got a good slide in that video you were showing her. I want to hear Kevin actually refute that.
So yeah, everyone who would like to come in, go ahead and come in. Did Kevin ever say he's going to come in?
Yeah, come on in, Kevin.
Or here, let's go ahead and play this while we wait.
Smokey's here too. Let's let him in. What's up, brother?
you're ashamed to mention.
Well, the only reason I went into those credentials is because I was asked to, just like this. But so I have a PhD in the field of organic chemistry, and I've been teaching as a professor for 32 years. And I work specifically in the area of nanotechnology. And we work in areas ranging from electronics. I have a computer.
Okay, we got Seawolf has come into the room. Seawolf is a cordial guy. Hey, Seawolf.
How's it going, guys?
Good. Were you here watching this from the
No, I
beginning?
missed the first
Close
bit,
to it.
but I saw you guys are bringing up Dr. Tor again. Can you guys explain to me what is going on with this guy? Why is he like the one expert that you guys seem to really focus on?
Oh,
With origin of life.
There's so
Origin
much
of life
pressure.
field.
Yeah, there's so much pressure in the scientific community to not out abiogenesis that someone has to be worth trillions of dollars or else they'll destroy his career. So James Tour is such an amazing scientist. He's the most qualified person in the world for assessing this topic. And he's worth so many, well, let me finish. He's worth so many trillions of dollars that they have to let him get away with putting out the facts that there is zero science to abiogenesis.
Yeah,
And it's as simple
I don't
as
think
that.
there's any sound, Nicholas, on the outside because. Oh wait. Oh, never mind. I guess maybe I messed up. Never mind.
We certainly hear you, Jungle. But
No.
yeah, Seawolf. So you can watch
My
the whole
bad.
video from the beginning afterwards because it's really good and it's
Yeah,
really.
maybe I'll just
solid.
watch it because I only have a couple minutes. But
Yeah, it'll answer all your questions for sure.
Yeah, Seawolf, basically what he's saying is that life from non-life has never been shown, even in the lab under very manipulated, contrived conditions. They still can't even do it. So what's your
what does
question?
that
brother?
mean? What is that? Why are you guys so focused on that? They're like, why is this science so interesting to you?
I have a chemistry background, and we talk a lot about the origin of life. It's just a discussion about abiogenesis. That's what we're talking about here.
Right. I mean,
Reality
like,
matters.
why on a Christian show that says something about Jesus Christ and everything, why are you guys so focused on the science of this in particular?
Because it's reality and truth that matters to us. Creation is evident. Only your creator can recreate you. He can raise you from the dead. Nobody else can.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's a lot of that. Whatever you just said, jungle jargon. I don't really You're making a lot of assumptions, and you're just kind of saying
No.
things.
All right, well, Seawolf, the
It's
discussion.
That's fine if you want to think that way. I don't.
You asked
agree with
why
you,
it
but-
mattered. These are observations that we make. What's wrong with the observations? Address the observations.
Right. So I'm just wondering what the next step would be. So let's say, so what is James Tour's religion again? Is he a Christian?
Yeah,
It's
but he
not
wasn't
religion,
talking
it's
about.
truth.
Hold on. Seawolf, he wasn't talking about his religion or anything to do with Jesus in the talk.
Oh, I
Go
thought
back
you
and
guys
watch
had
it.
the cross and all that Jesus Christ faith stuff on the show icon for a reason.
Yeah, that. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, that goes more into where it comes back around to the truth. And James Tour is evidence of God because he outclasses the people who do not have God. And it
It's
goes into
support.
that. 'Cause
Wait, he
Christ is-
outclasses the guys that don't have God? Is that what you said?
Oh, I'm really generalizing. I'm trying to, if you're going to try not to hear me, then this is going to be.
Well, no, I
pretty-
heard you. Is that really what you just said?
Okay. I'm actually done with Seawolf being here. He's too hard for me.
No,
to
just let him. No, I would say let him in. Let him back.
I can't stand how he's acting right now, and he didn't even see
Well-
the show, so he has nothing to contribute. And I'm
All right,
sorry,
well,
Tony, but
All right. Well, I did want to talk to Seawolf. I'll just. I mean, basically, yeah, he didn't like how you addressed the video and connected it to Jesus.
yeah, but he was just making it way too difficult to talk to him. I'll give him one more chance, but if you're going to be difficult to talk to like that, Seawolf, then I am going to throw you out because I'm getting stressed out.
Seawolf's all right.
I'd be
Seawolf,
glad.
I'll talk to you if you want, brother. What questions did you
Seawolf,
have,
we
man?
need you to slow down because you know you didn't see the video. You're trolling us hard, and
Seawolf.
my channel's not, you have yourself on mute, or well, I started it, but you've left it. But
What's up, Smokey?
What's up, Tony? Good to see you,
yeah,
bro.
but Seawolf, yeah, I mean, my channel's not a channel where I like talk to trolls. So if this won't be a real discussion, I won't do it. Maybe someone else will have a show where they talk to trolls later, but that's not what I do. Just so you know.
It's kind of my shtick.
Seawolf, why don't we?
I don't mind questions, but we just got to slow it down and actually engage.
All right. Well, how about this? Let's just stay on topic if we can. If you
Can
want to
I-
mock the Bible, do that somewhere else. Seawolf,
I-
this talk and video was on abiogenesis. If you have questions about that, let's talk about it, man.
Okay. Well, I didn't feel I mocked anyone. I thought I just asked a simple question about why you guys are talking so much about this particular science and this particular researcher with imagery associated with Jesus Christ and words saying that he's speaking in the truth of Christ. What is this
So
all
you don't
about?
see how it relates?
All right.
How does this relate to
Yeah,
Jesus?
Can I please answer this? Can I please
Well,
answer
hold
this?
on. This is Tony's show right now, and he said he doesn't want to talk about it from that
Okay.
angle. It's not how he wants
Good.
his show to be. So,
Yes,
if
Nick,
you want
that
to talk
put.
about the science, go ahead.
Yeah, if you got any science questions on abiogenesis, go ahead, man. That's what we're here
Yeah,
to talk
I
about.
wondered.
And Seawolf, let me say this: one-on-one after this part of the show, when I do like the part where it comes back around to James Tour talking about his faith, because so far it's been all science. When
Right.
it comes back around to him talking about his
Yeah.
faith, then I could talk to you one-on-one about it then, Seawolf, but not right now. It's not functioning anyway.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess I'm just asking for clarification of why you guys care so much about this science.
Seawolf, can I please
Well, we
ask you a
talk all
question?
different. I mean, yeah, the origin of life is a big field, so it's
Right.
talked about
Seawolf,
amongst atheists and Christians.
Seawolf, would you consider it acceptable for someone to post any scientific video, whether it's supporting abiogenesis or literally anything else, if they had any atheist or anti-theist imagery in their channel? Would you say that that's okay?
What would that look like?
I don't know, like a big
like a
red
picture of a cell.
Like a
or
star
like
looking A.
A big
what do you
A
mean?
star.
There's tons of anti-Christian imagery. If you like, what are you saying that doesn't exist?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think should be fair and balanced. And so if someone has an agenda and they're trying to prove a certain point, then that should just be fleshed out. And that's why I just wonder, is that what this is all about? Is just you guys are talking about this because it indicates that Jesus.
But, okay, wait. So to be clear, you would be just as condemning of any channel with atheist imagery.
Okay, Seawolf, do you have any questions about the chemistry, Seawolf?
Yeah, exactly.
Before we get into Jesus, we all know you want to mock the Bible and, you know, Jesus, whatever. Okay. Do you have any questions about the chemistry?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
When you guys talk about the chemistry, okay, and what James Tour's evidence points toward, what exactly do you think the next step is based on what he's presented? What comes next? What's the next step?
To producing life in the lab? What do you mean exactly?
Well, I mean, he's showing that we can't produce life in the lab, right? And he's saying that abiogenesis is not a thing.
Right.
Right. So then let's say it's not a thing. Let's say he's completely right. Then what?
Is this a question to how do we get to the supernatural? Is that where you're going with this?
I'm just wondering you guys are, if you just follow the science.
If you follow the science, if you follow the science, and what he said in the talk is that you need an intelligent agent to perform any of this chemistry from all the strict protocols and procedures, and how none of this would be available on the early Earth. So what it's saying is that an intelligent agent is necessary.
Okay, so the part I guess I disagree with him on, and I'd like to see some counter arguments to his research, is when you say an intelligent agent, what does that even mean? What does he mean by that? Does he have a definition?
Oh, hold on a second, because James Tour doesn't address it from an intelligent design.
Oh, okay, he doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, no, he avoids intelligent.
I thought Tony just said that. Okay, so he's not moving toward an intelligent designer.
Tony's giving Tony's conclusion based on the facts.
Right, and what he said, what he had in that slide was that chemists have to be present in order to get any of this chemistry to work.
Okay.
So when they buy these synthetic kits to start their experiments, they're all purified, they're all in a chiral form, they're all prepackaged and ready to go. So no, he doesn't say, yes, an intelligent agent must do this and go into the supernatural. He's saying that an intelligent chemist must be there just to start these experiments. But no, he doesn't use ID in his papers.
Okay, so he's not a proponent of ID then?
No, he's actually avoided it, and he stated as such that he's avoided it. Yes.
So for you guys personally, though, like when he talks about there being no possible way of abiogenesis or life forming from the ingredients that scientists have, we can't even do it in lab coats in a immunized environment. What next? What do you guys?
Well, you know what? Why don't you tell us? Because I would say the chemistry's failing so horribly under prebiotic conditions. So what is the naturalistic camp going to put forth?
I don't think they have anything. I think as far as I've heard,
they don't.
Right. That's my point. So I'm trying to wonder why you guys seems like there's something more important going on that.
Well, if I may I just ever so briefly, maybe I can clean this up a little bit. Seawolf, it's kind of like betting on the probabilities of the highest chance of what explains our reality most coherently. And the idea of the essentiality and necessity of a divine agent seems to be part of that. Now, looking at it, just extrapolating from the biology and the abiogenesis, we draw conclusions or inferences on what type of agent that would have to be. It would have to be supremely intelligent. So it would have the ability to have thinking in the future for how the code would operate in our DNA, how it would function, how it would replicate, how it would survive. It needed to be incredibly intelligent to create the code and program it. It needed to be incredibly powerful to jerry-rig the environment and create an environment where this could be done. All of these things point to something a little bit outside of just a typical what you would consider elevated intelligence. This is what draws us to an inference of a type of supreme, incredible intelligence that would be able to make something like this happen on Earth's environment.
And so that the next question is, right?
Right.
Go ahead.
You're gonna go back to the supernatural. What's the next step?
Well,
what options
No,
would
I
you
wasn't
have?
going to go supernatural at all. I was just going to
I think the
follow.
question is, which deity is then the next question, right?
Right. And are there multiple intelligences? And what created because you implied that there's a brain involved. Is that correct?
A mind, a brain is a physical construct. So I mean, mind is probably a better word.
Aren't minds always attached to brains?
No, well, that you know of. I mean,
Right.
if there was a mind that was before physical matter, you wouldn't know what it was made out of. It wouldn't be coherent to you if it was made out of anything at all, or anything that you would recognize as something to be made out of.
Right. So you're redefining what mind is then.
Well, I'm just pushing it. I'm just pushing it into realms of consideration that are outside of strict three-dimensional logic, because you're talking about higher dimensional paradigms. You're not talking about strict three-dimensional things. And I think that is one of the failures of atheists, is to attempt to define very higher dimensional quantum realms with three-dimensional logic and consider that they falsified what's there.
I don't do that at all. I'm wide open. I think the world's fucking nutso, dude. I have no idea what's going on in the universe out there. But I think some of the claims made by theists.
Seawolf, I don't allow cussing on my channel. I mean, it's okay, but you can make sure not to.
All right, sorry about that.
It's
So
okay.
you heard the gist of what I'm saying is I'm wide open. I'm not a closed-minded atheist. I'm just atheistic with regard to multiple claims that
we
I'm
hear
not
that a lot.
The gods that I haven't heard about yet. You guys
Can I
can throw
please?
some-
Can I
I've
just
heard
pose
about
it? Can I
That's
pose a
something-
question? Can I pose a question for you, Seawolf? If I were to say my mother is let's say, you know, let's say I used her name. Like let's say Bob Smith says his mother is Mary Smith. Okay, and you say no, you're not. No, she's not. Your mother is Barack Obama. The first step to me disproving you is to first prove that mothers can't be males. So as far as I understand, like, it's a legitimate thing to say, look, I'm not going into like her specific identity. Let's just first establish that mothers can't be males, and then we can, that's a very fair thing to establish and to talk about. Just because some people might believe her identity is of like one woman versus another, doesn't mean you can't address the fact that at first establish the fact that, well, she's definitely not, Barack Obama, because mothers can't be male. So that's, in my opinion, what James Tour is doing. He's not saying, he has no point says that the Christian God like logically follows. He's establishing that the current atheist paradigm does not add up. Right. And I don't see why that.
I want to clarify a little bit on that, if I may, Sunflower, because James Tour is establishing that there is zero scientific basis to the concept of abiogenesis, and that there is zero start to any kind of plausible theory at all whatsoever. So it's just that there's nothing to abiogenesis, and it's a disgrace to the rest of science. And James Tour wants to set the facts straight on that. It's as simple as that.
Beautifully put. That's exactly correct, Nicholas.
Yeah, I mean, think about all the scientists and people who have made contributions to society throughout history who are also theists. You would never throw out a person like all the legitimate stuff someone does if they do something that you disagree with. And look, I'm a theist too, but I'm saying from your perspective. For example, Linus Pauling, one of the most prolific Nobel Prize winners of all time, towards the end of his life, developed a lot of theories that are still common today about vitamin C that have been largely disputed. We still realize that all the stuff he did before the vitamin C, whether the vitamin C stuff is true or not, all that stuff is like some of the most important, true, like valid stuff.
Like Darwin's work.
Right?
I
mean,
even though we have on it greatly, there's been a lot of variations.
There's no reason to invoke Darwin here. All I'm saying is that
like the same kind of lineup. Like you would agree with that. The same applies to Darwin, right? Because that would be fair.
Not necessarily. In some regards, yes. But it's just you're obviously trying to do a gotcha. That's not the point of this. That's not the point of my example.
I'm just saying, I know that you guys would probably disagree with that, but if you were to apply the same logic, you would have to agree that.
We're really losing focus here, right?
Yeah, we're getting off topic. Darwin didn't even know what
I
it's
don't want to
got.
hold you guys up, in all honesty. I got to get going because I got to go somewhere, but that's what I was trying to figure out. And if I'm mistaken and you guys aren't using this to try to like justify Jesus creating the world, Okay, you guys are like, we don't know.
Well, yeah, no, I
Why
am
are you
too.
throwing the baby out?
I am
Wait,
too.
wait, Super, why are you throwing the baby out with the bathwater? If
We
someone
use-
makes a legitimate claim, and then like, if I say 2 + 2 is 4, and therefore Hitler never existed, 2 + 2 is 4 is still true. You're trying to somehow poison the well as if the claims that James Storm in the video are somehow illegitimate because
No.
Well, we don't know that. Seawolf never said that.
I never said that. I'm just saying that, like, I'm trying to understand where you guys are coming from. Like this. Like, I hear a lot of talk about evolution amongst theists, right? But I don't hear a lot of talk about gravity or germ theory.
why does it matter where they go with this data? All they did was show
Well,
the
hold on,
video.
Sunflower. Seawolf's on his way out. So
You-
I want
Yeah, and that's it. Like I'm always just curious why it seems like this crux, and I get it. It's just the origins of life, right?
Yeah,
And
Seawolf,
so you guys,
Well, Seawolf, can you watch the video?
I'd like to talk to you one-on-one sometime about it, Seawolf, but unfortunately this format isn't working for me.
right.
It's
And
not-
I gotta
it's not
get
really
going.
your
but-
fault, and I'm sorry about what earlier when I got frustrated and put you out.
Hey, no worries. You guys doing your thing, and I just jumped in. So I'll talk to you later. Good luck. And I learned a little bit more about it, but I still have some more questions.
Yeah, the video answers everything as far as abiogenesis research.
Yeah, you can forget a natural cause. It's just not happening.
Okay, jargon.
Well,
Okay,
Seawolf,
did you
just check it
understand?
out. Watch from the beginning, man.
I understand
Watch
that
the
you like
beginning, Seawolf. Okay, man, and then come back and we'll talk.
Yeah, like you're ending on where jungle jargon is saying
The natural
something
cause
that's
is just absurd. It's totally absurd.
Well,
apparently
Well, it is
whatever they
Seawolf.
want you leave to.
consensus right now.
It's your belief, your baseless belief that you fail to substantiate. Okay?
I didn't come up.
So if you believe it, you got to prove it. If not, throw it out. There's no natural cause.
Well, I beg to differ with you.
All right, well, Seawolf, watch the video and come back, man. How about, is that cool?
That's fine. Okay, thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
Friggin' object credit givers.
And then, okay, here, let's do equal sizeness. And Tony, let's let each of the other three say what they want to say about abiogenesis.
Yeah.
Topic.
Go ahead. I'm going to go on mute.
So, do you want to
Okay,
go first? Oh,
don't-
Sunflower sounds ready.
Okay, yeah. So to me, like you know, I juxtapose my belief in God against the evidence. So when I don't consider, like, when I look at a video like the one you posted on James Tor, and he made it very clear that he wasn't invoking like the Christian God. It's a valid video whether you're an atheist or a theist. So I just don't understand why someone would say, okay, sure, you're making extremely valid claims for why abiogenesis could have never happened, but why are you doing it? Like, that's not really a good faith argument, in my opinion, because arguments or scientific data, compelling scientific data, it stands on its own. So I just didn't really understand. I didn't consider it really a good faith.
Well, I think it's as simple as he was interested in the other side of the discussion. This video is not focused on that side of the discussion. The end of the video is going to tie it into that, but that's not the focus of the video, you know?
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, again, it's sort of like it's like you can have that discussion later, but he jumped the gun because I think he just is maybe I'm not trying to be mean, but maybe insecure in some way. Like,
They all do that because they see the Bible, the cross. That's what they want to go to every time.
Right. So that's all I really got on that. But yeah.
Okay, so seriously though, is Seawolf Kevin Shea? Like, seriously? Because Kevin Shea.
Guys,
okay.
Yes. Let me just put it this way. Yes. That's all
I
I'm saying.
forgot about that. Yeah, Seawolf is Kevin Shea. He's just trolling, and it's funny because, like, you know, I didn't really call him out as totally just trolling, but there's little nuances to it. You know, I've played poker before. I haven't played it since I've been saved. I'm not saying I never will, but you know, I used to think deception was fun and stuff. And yeah, I mean, he was trolling, and I could tell he was having fun with us and stuff. And Yes,
Yeah.
this is my focus for my channel, but it's Tony's show, so I'm like, okay, I'll be flexible and we'll roll
I
with
thought maybe it wasn't because I had talked to Kevin Shea, I thought, on my channel and Metaxis, and it sounded like just a belligerent young kid who never got on cam. But now, like, since then, every time Kevin Shea is in chat, like, then, like, soon after, like, Seawolf might pop up in the live stream. It's weird.
Yeah, for sure. I'm thinking that they're one and the same. I'm in that camp now.
Or maybe they're like roommates or something. I don't know.
What are you suggesting?
Right? Right?
Gotta find that part of the footage and see.
Let me just put it this way.
Voice,
I would never dox someone, but I am certain that they're the same person. I'll just put it that way.
They might be. Yeah, they might be.
I don't know if Kevin Shea is even his real name, so that's why I don't feel bad saying it. But no, I have like 100% certainty they
I
are the
was
same
not
person.
sold on it at all until today. Today really kind of flipped it over because Kevin Shea was in the chat and there weren't that many people watching. It was like, what, 10, 11, 12, something like that. Kevin Shea's in the chat. Then Kevin Shea's not in the chat. And then Seawolf's in the live stream. Yeah, it's like a Clark Kent moment.
So I'll just say that I reached out. Remember when I wanted to debate Kevin Shea? There was a point where I wanted to debate Kevin Shea, and like in the chat and Smokey in one of your chats. Let's just put it this way: we corresponded via email, and there's evidence there's evidence in those emails that they're the same person. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, I'm convinced then. Gosh, he is so like have you guys seen what he posts on my channel? Like, I mean, he goes crazy. Like, I mean, like seriously, the things he will say are like so out there in like leftist, atheist field. Like, it blows my mind sometimes.
Yeah, he seems unstable when he's posts.
Right? Like in text, he seems like a full-blown bass case. Like, it's crazy.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, George.
Sorry, I missed the first 70 minutes of the live stream. And,
well, then you're not allowed to comment. Nicholas said so.
well, I wanted to come in earlier when Seawolf, aka Kevin Shea, was on, but I wasn't sure whether you had a 6 or a 10 licensed StreamYard account. So I waited and bided my time until someone had left. But what I wanted to say was I just wanted to know whether Seawolf actually knew how many failed hypotheses of abiogenesis there are, because
he has no clue.
Otangelo has detailed 45 of them. And I read an article recently, and this is how hard it is for them to solve the problem, right?
Right.
Now they propose the DNA molecule actually happened all at once during the Big Bang.
This is got to be the funniest one.
And there was a big molecular DNA cloud that just stuck around and somehow, yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. This is how ridiculous it's getting to the point, and this was in a science magazine.
They're trying to make the flying spaghetti monster a real thing, dude. I'm telling you.
Exactly. I mean, I love listening to Tony and the abiogenesis topic, and I'm pretty sure Tony's aware of all those 46 hypotheses for abiogenesis, and you just have to ask. You know, when are they going to finally say, we don't know, and give up and use the money for worthwhile purposes in medical research to solve problems like cancers and diseases?
You know what? Cosmic DNA cloud, we have jumped the shark. It is over. Seriously, it is done. It is done. Like, I thought the DNA or the amino acids on the meteorites was crazy. This is a whole new level.
Well, I actually linked. I actually linked it in the chat, so you can read the article yourselves. You don't have to believe me.
Oh yes, please. Yeah. I might even have to do something about that tonight on the show. That's brilliant, George.
No, it's in the chat now, Smokey.
In private chat or in the main chat?
They're in the main chat. I'm a mod, so you'll see it in blue, and you can click it, and it'll take you to the site.
I'm looking for it here.
And then, Jungle, what would you like to say?
About the biogenesis.
Yes.
Yeah, I watched a lot of, or a few of James Tour's videos, and they're very persuasive and very informative as to what's required to get all the mechanisms and life forms, and not only do you need the amino acids, the proteins, but you have to have nano machines, and you have to have the information to make the nano machines. So
Yeah,
and the nano machines are made of proteins. So you have to have the concatenation to make the proteins, then the foresight and engineering to make the nano machines, and have it all work so where they communicate, all this communication going on back and forth between the cells and everything is just,
Yes,
unbelievable.
sorry to
what were
interject
the,
there.
well, hold on,
Sorry
George.
to interject. I was just going to say, at Smokey, I put it in the private chat as well if you want to.
Oh,
find
thank
it
you.
quickly.
Yeah, I don't see it in the regular chat. Thank you. I probably because I have the wrong thing.
And I got to say a couple things now. One, what Jungle is saying about oh, you were talking about the videos being really good. I finally put the videos in the description. And then so if you refresh, you should have all the videos and everything in the description. Including Smokey's video of Tony and James Tour having a discussion. That's the first one on the list.
Yeah, it was
great video.
Yeah, it was incredible.
And then Jungle was just talking about how you have to have the communication in the cell. Just before that, you were talking about the machines, and that's why I said it's physical. It's not all chemical. It also, there's physical processes. They form into machines that do physical things. Like this nano car in the background here. I'll put it in the foreground real quick. I have a way to do that. This nano car, it is not having a chemical reaction with the thing it is moving along. It is made of chemicals, but it is a physical machine that is actually rolling literally a nano car along this surface, which is maybe gold or one of two other substances they've used so far. I don't remember the other two. So yeah, what you're saying about the nano machines, that's very key. It's not just chemistry. And then you were talking about all the communication in the cell. Tony, do you remember what the word for that was that James Tour gave us? About the word for the total communications that go on, that are necessary to go on in a cell. And there's 10 to the 7 to the 79 billion power different combinations of those.
Right, and that was just for proteins, I believe.
And he was talking about the carbon, no carbohydrate.
Or the carbohydrates, yeah.
Yeah, those are awesome too.
Yeah.
So what is he saying? There's a chance then?
A Jim Carrey Dumb and Dumber kind of chance.
Yes, that's it.
Infinite possibilities in limited time and space. It's not going to happen because a living organism, living things, they fall apart much faster than they put themselves together.
Yeah, and everybody here, Jungle here, like how he's explaining it simply. And then if you're ready with like the video links, you know, I have a playlist that's called References that I can like throw. Well, nowadays you can't really put links inside chats anymore. I think I used to be able to do that way back when. But you know, just being ready with the information to back it up. But you see how simply Jungle can put it. What was it again?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you just said?
I like to make it simple. I don't know what I just said.
The best timestamp is when he was talking about the proto-cell engineering.
Yeah, the
Alchemist.
proto-cell.
Yeah, that was a good one. He has a whole list of all the problems and how it's all,
Yeah.
prepackaged
Everything-
chemicals, and everything's all prepared beforehand.
Everything falls apart before it puts itself into directed working order.
Right, and that's
That
just
too.
to make their stupid little bubble, right?
Right,
Yeah.
they're useless diacetyl membrane that's not even resembling a functional cell membrane.
Yeah, man, the fake science is such garbage and such fraud. We're
Right.
at about 2 hours now,
Yeah.
so I think I'm
If
gonna.
they could just be
wrapping it up.
simple, if they could just be simple, like you said, to understand that living organisms fall apart much faster than they put themselves together, this discussion would be over.
That was
Exactly.
what
It would be.
Yes, the chemicals fall apart faster than they put themselves together.
Hey,
Exactly.
Nick, thanks for having me, Nick. God bless you, brother. God bless
Thank you,
everybody in here.
Tony.
Smokey,
God
JJ.
bless you too, Tony. Good to see you,
Hey,
brother.
Smokey.
God
Hey,
bless you,
Smokey,
Tony.
did you get that email from Peter, by the way? Because he
Oh yeah,
emailed
no,
me.
I sent him one today. I'm just waiting for him to respond back and nail us down a time. He's UK time, so he said like he's good on like I think he said Thursday or Friday afternoons. So like for him, that's like probably 4, 5, 6 o'clock. For us, that's like 9, 10 in the morning, something like that. So
Okay, let me
Is
know.
that
for
brother.
me it
Peter,
is.
is that Peter the Tucker?
Peter, no,
Peter-
Peter, what is
Peter
it?
Bussey, he's a cosmologist, physicist
Right.
over in UK, Christian.
Right. We wanna pick his brain about like some of the faulty. What were we kind of planning to do, Tony? The faulty models of cosmology, like the Big Bounce or the multiverse or crud like
Correct.
that, kind of.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
get him to kind of like weigh in on that, and then also I kind of wanted to ask him and pick his brain about some of the components specifically of cosmological fine tuning that he finds to be most compelling.
Exactly.
So yeah, so like we have a plan of I'd say maybe 60 to 90 minutes if he'll give it to us, to
Yeah,
really
perfect.
pick his brain on some of that stuff. So
Excellent.
because I mean we've done a lot on the science and the abiogenesis. This is
Yeah.
really cool to get a perspective from the fact that it's not just the biology, like everything in the universe, like up to the planet, the terrestrial, where our biology was created, was all fine-tuned. So like really kind of, and I mean we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of extremely precise components that have to be precisely fall within a metric, unless they all cascade in each other, and the universe basically dissolves and destroys itself. So this is a real compelling argument to the essentiality of not just the intelligent agent for biology, but the intelligent agent beyond space and time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right,
that was
guys,
really-
have a good night, man.
God
Thanks,
bless
Nick.
you, brother. Thank you,
God
Tony.
bless.
Oh, thank
All
you,
right, brother.
Tony.
Thank you,
Yeah.
man. Take
In
care,
fact,
guys.
I think too, after we get Peter on, I'll start. I'll go leave a message and see if I can get Dr. Hugh Ross on too, because he's also
Yep.
a cosmologist. What do
Awesome.
you think, Tony? Maybe we
Yeah,
get like
man.
a tandem there.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be
getting 'em.
awesome. Okay, well, God bless you, brother. Thank
Good
you so
night,
much.
brother. All right, guys.
Cosmologist.
Okay, guys, I'm heading into wrapping up the show. So if anyone wants to either just say goodbye or say some thoughts on like apologetics and abiogenesis or in Jesus, and we're getting to the bringing it back to the Jesus point part of the show, which I'm going to do next after I kick you all out.
About the power of the resurrection. We just discovered that with Matt Bond.
Oh yes, Matt Bond, and that was that late last night, as I remember.
I think it was maybe the other day, but
Okay, that's the first I heard of it was last
he
night.
said it was because of the resurrection that he was convinced.
Yeah, and we're going to
Yeah.
see James Tour doesn't use abiogenesis, this and that in his apologetics. He's going to tell us what he does use.
It's the power of the resurrection. The single most important thing. Only your creator can be your savior. Nobody else can be.
For sure. Thank you, Jungle. Then anyone else have their?
Oh, James. Okay. Yeah, I might have a debate tonight in like an hour on Trump versus Biden. I'm not sure. Gosh, James, he didn't get back to me all day, and like I had something else I was going to do tonight. I guess I have to see if I can work this out. Yeah, I guess I got to go, guys. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. God bless.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Nicholas.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. God bless you all, and
Yeah,
always appreciate
God
it.
bless you, and I'll let you wrap it up.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Okay, so we got a couple more clips here. And oh, I don't have it up at the moment, so I got to bring it back up. Now, Nathan, artwork, I tried to just reference it without saying what it was. And you really like pressed the point and you wanted to talk about it, so I addressed it directly. I didn't have time to like beat around the bush. I tried to not talk about it, was my first approach to that. Let me see. Okay, I got a hyperlink, is all I have to do is open the hyperlink. So open hyperlink. Okay, I'm watching an ad for a second, skipping the ad, and now I just got to share the screen now that it's actually up. So I'm just a moment away from having it up. See, it's really there. So let's go.
And I wanted, I really want my audience to get to know you for many reasons. Let's just start with your professional credentials. Tell us, you did a short video the other day that I watched where you went on and on about your credentials, and then you said, but the most important thing was you're a Jew who believes Jesus is the Messiah. So what are some of those credentials? And I'll fill in the ones that you're ashamed to mention.
Well, the only reason I went into those credentials is because I was asked to, just like this. But so I have a PhD in the field of organic chemistry, and I've been teaching as a professor for 32 years. And I work specifically in the area of nanotechnology. And we work in areas ranging from electronics. I have a computer memory company that's based on some of our work, to medicine. I have a couple of things that we're doing in medicine, and one company already on that and another one starting. And then we do a lot in the area of materials, new space age materials, graphene in particular. And so I have several companies that are based on that sort of product. So we work across electronics, medicine, and materials.
Jim, do your best to look right at the camera rather.
I just want to real quick let Nathan artists know that I'll unhide you from this channel maybe later today or in a few days or something. But like, what's all this talk about? Like, do not disrespect me. It's just like, you said things in public on a public stream. I was referencing a past stream. I referenced it without talking about it. You insisted on talking about it. It got talked about. Now you're upset. I mean, this is the honest forum here, so I don't really know what's disrespectful about, you know, it's not like I pulled something from private and brought it here, and it's not like I even intended to talk about it with the specific details, you know. So I think you just need to like take some control of your own life and existence, and you'll want the truth for that, and that's Jesus. And you'll have to face up to the facts that like killing preborn babies is a form of murder and stuff like that if you want the truth to help you in your life. But yeah, Christ is the truth, and he wants to help you, Nathan. And then you don't have to like blame me for where you let your choices of discussions in public go.
Than at the screen, and we'll edit that out. But okay, Jim, so look, I can go on and on about you because you're humble, and I hate that about you. You should be more, you should brag more, because God has really done some extraordinary things with you. You have been listed as one of the top scientists of the decade. You have done things with nanotechnology that are just unbelievable. Talk for a second, just so my audience understands about what you do. You create molecules in the lab. I mean, the idea that you're manipulating atoms to create molecules. Tell us about the nano cars.
Well, those are single molecule cars that have 4 wheels and a little motor in it. And so what we do is we just shine a light, and that motor begins to spin at about 3 million rotations per second. And we take known pieces. I mean, these sorts of motors were known. We just built them into a car. And now what we've done.
Look, what you're saying sounds semi-normal to you. To anyone else, it sounds like you've lost your mind. You just said that you make cars that are a single molecule. Anyone who remembers what a molecule is, the idea that you have built these things that are one molecule, a single molecule that has axles and wheels and what you call a motor and a chassis, it is completely unbelievable, except I know you're not lying. So just to be clear, these cars with wheels actually roll over a surface. What kind of a surface are we talking about?
So we've used several different surfaces, but we've used gold, we've used silver, and we've used glass. And so we drive it over this, and we build very large wheels on it so that it can go up one step high, one atom high steps.
These
doesn't get stuck.
These are the monster trucks of the molecular world. That's what you're telling us.
Yeah, and they work very well, and you can shine a light and you can get them to move. It's you can't see them with your visible eye, but there are instruments where we can see them. But what's neater is is that more recently what we've done is we've been able to take these same motors, and then we hook a short peptide, a short protein to it, and then we have those associate with certain cells that we don't like particularly cancer cells, say, or bacteria. And they'll latch on, and then we turn on the motor, and the motor drills into the cell and kills it. And so that's a great way to kill cells. So we've just started a company around that.
Cancer-killing monster trucks on a...
So he's talking about using the motor from the car to run a nano drill. So it's pretty cool. It's literally nanotechnology through synthetic biological chemistry to make machines. The closest thing that we actually have to someone doing science remotely, anything like abiogenesis, is the kind of stuff James Tour does. But it has nothing to do with abiogenesis.
Molecular level. I'm afraid that your great learning has made you mad. In all seriousness, this is so wonderful, Jim. It's such a joy to talk to you about this, and I love the fact that you try to make it understandable to those of us who don't have PhDs in any field, much less science or nanotechnology. Now, are you a nanoscientist, a nanobiologist, a nanochemist, or all three?
Well, I'm a chemist, but I work in all those areas.
So, but I'm saying you'd be described as a nanochemist or a nanobiologist or a nanoscientist?
I'd be described as probably a nanoscientist. Yeah.
And if you were a woman, would your grandkids call you Nana or Nano? That's a joke. Okay, listen, Jim, you're creating molecules in the lab. Don't just pay no attention to the stupid jokes. You're creating molecules in the lab, and part of the reason I want to talk to you about that is because I want to get to talk to you about the origin of life, and then I want to talk to you about where you're coming from in terms of your life philosophy and spirituality. But let's just talk for a moment about the origin of life. I remember when I was
Okay, so I don't know exactly why that was the exact moment I chose for pausing, but I did. And then let me just pull up the end of this, which is going to get really focused on Jesus. Which you can probably tell by how my voice sounds, but that's my favorite part. Okay, so 2638. I'll just skip up there on here to 2638. Here we go.
Scientist. Jim, what I find comical about
being at home for me has been therapeutic. We're spending so much more time with our family.
All of this is that you're one of the top scientists on the university, Dr. James Tour, nanoscientist. Jim, what I find comical about all of this is that you're one of the top scientists on the planet, and at some point early in life, you found faith really dramatically. And most people who know anything about how science works today knows that typically people of serious faith are dismissed or somehow ostracized because it makes people with a scientific, materialistic worldview very uncomfortable. And I would think that you, being at the level you are, would make people particularly uncomfortable. You're their worst nightmare.
Well, I'm certainly an anomaly. In the academy. I love Jesus more than anything. Boy, I just love Jesus. This one who hung on the cross for me, this one who rose from the dead is the Son of God. And when I got saved at the age of 18, he really changed my life. He really changed me. and I love him so much. And I just want to spend my life talking about him and how good he is. And what I found in the academy is that if you speak a little bit about Jesus, they'll give you trouble. But if you speak a lot, they leave you alone. I mean, they just don't even want to get you started. And I just will not quit. I just love Jesus more than anything. I'll take out full-page ads in the school newspaper and just talk about Jesus and how wonderful he is.
So this is a man who literally takes out full-page ads in his in the newspaper at the college that he works at, the university that he works at, and just to talk about how great Jesus is. I mean, I love Dr. Tour. As far as people other than Jesus go, I am a big fan of Dr. James Tour.
And nobody will say a word. And I just love him, and I will testify of him. And I try to bring as many people to Jesus as I can. If I go a week without bringing somebody to the Lord and getting them from no faith to faith in Jesus Christ as the Son of God, risen from the dead, and involved in a Bible study, if I don't do that at least once a week, I feel like it's been a wasted week for me. I really love Jesus.
How do you, evidently you do, sir. Let me ask you, how do you do that? In other words, being a very, very busy academic and a researcher, you've got all these companies you've started that are doing, we haven't even touched on that. You're doing truly spectacular, miraculous, in quotes, things with technology, saving lives, bringing, having the lame be able to walk. I mean, we can talk about that another time, but you're doing really amazing things. How, given your busy schedule, do you interact with people such that you're able to do that?
I make this a focus. If I see somebody, if I perceive somebody might be open to the Lord, I will stop what I am doing and I will meet with them and I will take them through. And I don't use any grand apologetics arguments. I don't use scientific arguments. I use the simple gospel. That message works across all cultures. In the past, I had done prison ministry. Now all I do is I speak to academics, and I will see undergraduates, graduate students, postdocs, mainly in the sciences, professors. Just last week, there was one undergraduate came to the Lord, and one professor in chemical engineering came to the Lord. This happens over and over again, and I'm telling you, it is the simple gospel. Everybody wants to be the grand apologist. That's not what I use. What I use is that we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and I tell my testimony about how I was confronted with my sin by reading the statement of Jesus that if you look at a woman to lust after her, you've committed adultery with her already in your heart. And I confront people with this verse to show them that they are sinners, because there's nobody that can read that and not be convicted. And then I show them how God demonstrated his own love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us, and take them right over to Romans chapter 10, verse 9, that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that he's risen from the dead, you will be saved. And I say, have you ever seen a resurrection? They say, no, I've never seen a resurrection. I said, neither have I. How is it? How is it that I have this conversation in 10 or 15 minutes with people every week, all of them educated, and they go from not believing in the physical resurrection of Jesus Christ to believing in the physical resurrection in a 10-minute conversation? How do you think that happens?
I believe it's the power of the Holy Spirit, because there is nothing natural that can explain that leap.
Exactly. And I tell them, because the truth of the resurrection of Jesus Christ is already in your heart. It would be too incredible and too hard of a thing for God to have set that as the barrier for salvation. He told us in that verse, this is what you have to do to be saved, that to believe Jesus is Lord, to confess Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart. That means really believe it, that Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. The truth of the resurrection is already there. And all I'm asking you to do is to confess that the truth is already there, because Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead for you. And I see students, graduate students, professors, all young physicians from the medical center every week bowing to that message and saying, Yes, yes, and confess that right there. And I would say almost every one of them will get involved immediately in a Bible study. I said, look, I've given you this 15 minutes. Now you owe me 13 hours. 13 hours, that's 13 weeks of Bible study, 1 hour a week, going through Growing in Christ by the Navigators Campus Ministry.
And this is what I mean by how valuable his time is. Like, whether we're talking about that he's spreading the gospel, or that his time is worth money to other people, or that he's making the crippled to walk and the deaf to hear. Whatever he's doing, his time is incredibly valuable. And so when he gives someone 15 minutes of time, he asks for 13 hours in return. And it's a very reasonable request.
And I get them set up with somebody, and I do this week after week after week. That's what means more.
You see, this is the kind of authority that comes with the kingdom of Christ. That a scepter of righteousness is the scepter of Christ's kingdom. And now here, James Tour is wielding the truth. You know, he's proclaiming the kingdom and proclaiming the truth in many ways. And he who humbles himself is exalted. And James Tour is someone who is humble to the truth, which is Christ. And so the truth, which is Christ, exalts Dr. James Tour. He's a wonderful example for us all. And we should all behave a lot more like him. We should all talk a lot more like him. And we should all be genuinely that passionate for Jesus, for Yeshua, just like Dr. James Tour is.
More to me than origin of life. That's what means more to me than nanochemistry. It's Jesus. It's him who gave himself for me on the cross. I love Jesus more than anything.
Can you bring this back to polysaccharides?
Jesus, it's amazing what he did with polysaccharides. It is so amazing. If you take 6 nucleic acids, all of them the same, A. There's only one way to put those together. That's all the 6 the same. If you just had 6 D-mannoses, just 6 carbohydrates, standard carbohydrates, you can hook those together in over 1 trillion different ways. Imagine the information that's stored in sugar. I mean, God is amazing. He stored all this information in sugar. People are so enamored by DNA and RNA and how much information can be stored. And he just put before us sugars. He says, what do you think?
Oh man,
I'm
they
Michael
interrupted
Newman. I'm the
the
inventor of the
moment.
Toller Unit with OmniLock wrench. Something out of your pocket. It covers 30 wrench sizes.
Think of this.
Just think
it's
of
information that's stored in sugar. I mean, God is amazing. He stored all this information in sugar. People are so enamored by DNA and RNA and how much information can be stored. And he just put before us sugars. He says, what do you think of this?
Just think
It's
of the
amazing.
miracle.
He just put before us sugars. What do you think of this? It's amazing. And yeah, so that's basically the show about how, well, maybe I'll see if I can say, sort of addressing Kevin Shea's questions when he came in here on the live stream about why we connect it to Jesus. Now, first off, it connects to God, right? Well, I guess that was already explained by my brothers. But there is no one has proposed anything that has any evidence or plausibility or logic or reason to it at all as a possible beginning of life, except for a creator God. So far, that's the only explanation on the table. And then Jesus, Yeshua, the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, the only born Son of God, who, if we are in him, we are adopted also as sons of God, but he's the only born Son of God. And he is God, born of God, who inherited his father's name, Yehovah. Now, man, I got so much to talking about Jesus, I forgot what I was talking about besides Jesus. But, oh yes, on the cross, our Messiah, made the character of God obvious. And so the study of the cross and the study of right and wrong and seeing how obvious the character of God is in Christ, that's another discussion for another day. So I want to thank everyone who listened, everyone who participated in the stream. I especially want to thank Tony for being here to do the video, which yeah, I'd like to do another one with Tony. That's the video that he did with Dr. Tour. They only had 20 minutes together, so they were super fast. Like, we might even slow that one down instead of speed it up. And then Tony, you know, at every point, he can like pause it and say what he wants because it was rushed in 20 minutes. So it'd be nice to like slow it down and, you know, have like full discussion about it. And I got to watch that one again because now that I understand more quickly, you know, I've studied it another 2 or 3 times now, the stuff that Dr. Tour has been informing me about. I can probably keep up with Tony's video better. So I'll stop babbling on about things. Oh, okay. This weekend that I'm doing a worship show with the community and stuff. So here, let me put a link in the side chat to it. And then I'm also going to air it here on this channel. So you can check it out here on this channel. But then I'm also airing it on a channel that I'm making for the community. Well, I already made the channel, but it's just barely started so far. And that's where we're going to post the show. And I might reschedule it for Saturday afternoon, which would be Saturday 3 p.m. Eastern time. I might reschedule it because it might be a better time for a lot of people to actually participate or something. So we'll see. I'm doing it on the fly, but it'll become a weekly thing. There it is in the chat. Now, I wish everyone shalom. That's the one true peace that only Messiah can give. And just the very best advice that I always give, just trust Messiah.